Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
Hello everyone, welcome to your latest Wolves Fancast episode. I'm your host, Little Dan. It's been such a long time since we've done a show. Anyone would have thought that we'd given the channel up, but forgive me for that. Thank you for joining us on this latest episode. Be sure to press the like button on entry as we discuss all the latest news from Molineux, Compton, and let's get straight onto it so we can forget all about it until we release the highlights later on this week. On Friday night, the Wolves Fancast hosted our annual charity football match at Molineux, raising funds for the Good Shepherd Wolverhampton. It was a great night had by all apart from the team who lost on the night, who would still say they had a great time. Fancast ran out winners with 5-1. Greg, it was your first time featuring in the charity match. Give your thoughts and just a bit more of an insight into the experience for those who have never experienced it before.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for organising what was an amazing event and something that was I never thought I'd do, which was to actually play on the Molineux pitch, which also was a lot bigger than I thought it would be. Even trying to size it up in the South Bank at the Brentford game, trying to get a feel. I don't think you can actually appreciate it until you actually get on there. It was a brilliant event for a very worthwhile cause, the Good Shepherd, and a wonderful experience. Also, on a personal level, it was amazing to watch a professional footballer, recently retired professional footballer, kind of strutting his stuff, David, and just to watch how much time and space he had playing was a sight to behold, really. So yeah, a really great experience and really worthwhile.
Yeah, David Edwards was the guest player for the Fancast on Friday night. Adam Proudlock was the guest player for the opposition team that consisted of sort of content creators from Talking Wolves, the 77 Club, Wolfpack, BBC WM's Prince of Darlaston, Mark Rhodes was also featuring in the side. It was a really good night. Yet again, just the facilities that Molineux provide. On and off the pitch with support from the corporate team and the event staff. We had an amazing night. We've raised to date £3,230 for the Good Shepherd, and that's likely to raise at least to around £4,000 by the time this fundraising comes to an end. So thanks to everyone who has helped and supported and donated to this event for the Wolves Fancast, because it means a lot. We give up our free time to do these shows for you, to talk about Wolves in the good times and the bad, and that helps to contribute in for us to play at the Molineux once a year. And we all pay to play. We don't get given any sort of discount from Wolves for it being a charity game or anything. We all fund it out of our own pockets to play at Molineux, whereas there has been other events recently where that there hasn't been much of an expenditure from some players to play at Molineux. So we really appreciate you supporting Wolves Fancast over the last, how many years is it now? Prior to 2007, I think the channel started. You played in it a couple of years ago at Molineux. Do you remember your day out and the experience of it all?
I remember I was absolutely bloody knackered by half time, and that's just more reflection on my fitness. But as Greg says, it's also a reflection of just how just cavernous the space is when you're out there. You sit up and you watch, like every other week at Molineux, you watch the players and you think, I fancy myself to run around the pitch. And you get on there and you're thinking, bloody hell, you've got to be fit to do this game. But such an experience. I kind of talk from my experience. Getting to use the home changing rooms, getting to have a look where they all take a bath afterwards and have a shower, using all the facilities, walking out to the tunnel, having your friends and family there to see you walk out, and just to, once the game starts, I don't know about you, Greg, but you just kind of get in the zone, don't you? It just becomes like a game when you start playing. But when the ball goes out of play and you have a look around, you just look around the stands and the seats, that's when you start to take it all in. And on those moments when the ball's gone out of play, or undoubtedly one of us has had a slightly or very wayward shot, and you get a few seconds to yourself while the ball's playing back, and you just get to look around and think, you know what, this is pretty amazing. I'm playing on a Premier League ground. So it's just a fantastic well, firstly, a fantastic initiative that we put together here, and also just a fantastic memory for everyone involved.
Yeah, touching about Price, you said honestly you don't realise how big that pitch is, and until you're centre circle looking towards both goals front and back. If you go and stand in the spot where Ruben Neves scored that volley against Derby, it feels a mile away from goal. And yeah, it's like I said, thanks for everyone who supported. It's a great experience. One of the perks of being on the Fancast, isn't it, Price, that you know firsthand, is if you make the effort to be on episodes of the Wolves Fancast, you get first dibs on featuring in our annual charity match. And if there's anyone out there that wants that experience, wants to give some emphasis and efforts towards the Wolves Fancast, drop us an email, podcast@wolvesfancast.com. We're always looking for new faces and voices. So yeah, we'll move on from that and talk about probably the biggest news that's come out of Wolves in the last sort of 24 hours is that sporting director at Wolves, Matt Hobbs, has left the club on mutual consent. Sky Sports' Johnny Phillips has been posting on his Substack blogging site and has featured on tonight's episode of BBC WM with the inimitable Daz Hale, and he's talked about how it finally feels that the hierarchy of Wolves have realised that they can no longer keep risking Wolves' future with minimal investment in order to push Wolves on as a force in the Premier League, similar to what we did under Nuno. They've realised that we have to invest not a ridiculous amount, but an amount that will give us a good starting point, whereas in previous years it has been left to the January transfer window to sort of get us out of a hole, to keep us safe in the Premier League. And it feels like the club as a whole have realised the mistakes and the reset button has been hit to a degree. What have you made to the bits that have come out in the last sort of 24 hours, Greg, on Matt Hobbs' departure?
Yeah, I read Johnny's article with a lot of interest, and it does feel like we're kind of pivoting back to Uncle George and that kind of approach. I think there's obviously took time to reflect. I think the kind of Matt Hobbs, I think with there's been some good things in there. So let's take a clear perspective. I think Matt's done some good things. I think the picture you've got with Gary is a big indicator as to some of the things he didn't do so well. You know, that 4-year contract off the back of poor end the previous season. I think we didn't win in the last 10 games. You know, so that wasn't formed kind of leading towards a 4-year contract. So I think that was kind of an unraveling. And I think if we are seeing a kind of a change, a pivot back, whether that's, you know, maybe that Fosun have got more of a green light now from the Chinese government to invest. I mean, you just don't know some of these things that are in play that could be changing the perspective. You know, and as a Wolves fan, listen, it's never quiet. There's always something going on, and I think this could be a very interesting window. And if Gestafute, I think hopefully I've pronounced that correctly, are going to have more of an impact, then it's going to be an interesting window for sure.
Yeah, definitely. He has got some very notable signings at Wolves under his sort of tenureship in the role. I think his massive one, Pricey, was the pushing of signing Max Kilman from Maidenhead for the menial fee that we ended up paying, and the profit that we made on Max. Obviously, strengthened Wolves' scouting network with the recent moves to South America, which has brought the likes of João Gomez and Andre to Wolves. What are your thoughts on the departure?
It's a bit surprising in a way because, as has just been said, you know, he wasn't doing. I don't think anyone would say he was doing a bad job, or outright saying he's got to, you know, what's he doing? What's he bringing to the club? He's doing a bad job. He's obviously had periods when he's been at the club where things have gone well, and he's had periods at the club where the wrong decisions been made. You know, so I don't really think that there's any concerted push to get him out of the club. He's made some great signings for the club. I mean, you kick it off there with Max Kilman. That's 70 odd grand, sold for 40 million. I won't turn it into a Kilman loving, because no one wants to hear that anymore. But that was an amazing signing, certainly for the accountants on that one. Not only that he was very consistent for us, but he was turned a very good profit for us. And then most recently, he's been at the forefront of the Brazilian samba train conveyor belt of players that have come into the club, and they've all done really well for us. We've got arguably, like, with Andre and João Gomes, we've got two of the core members of Brazil's squad who's in our first team. So it must be some overarching view that Fosun or Jeff has got, where he's putting his trust back into people that he has previously put trust into. And then look, I mean, when we had Mendes at the start, it was very exciting, wasn't it? It was all new to us then. And the first year we kind of just we let the first year slide down under Mendes, because they came in right at the last minute. Fosun, they had a bit of a Charlie dash, and we ended up with the likes of Silvio, João Teixeira, John Daddy Bodvarsson, and Costa Carvalho. It was quite entertaining having like a player come every 4 days. But then when they actually knuckled down, we got the main guys in the year after, like Jotas, Neveses, etc. That's when we saw the real fruits of that connection with Gestifute and Mendes and Cardoso. And then obviously kind of went a bit too far, and we started seeing more signings like of Bruno Jordão than Diogo Jota's, and players were literally here for like a season and they were moved on. So we've had the good and the bad with this relationship with Gestifute, but I'm hoping, and we're all hoping, that we will go back to that era, that 2017 era, of getting in players who have got high potential, high quality, but also high potential. And we're not spinning the Gestifute tombola, and the Jordão could quite easily pop out when we're all hoping for like another Jota, essentially. But it is interesting, and I've been talking to some people about it today, and we said there that Pereira, we had on the slide there that Pereira's getting much more of a big say based off the back of his 6 months of work, which is obviously a bold tactic to make, isn't it? Because he's got a lot of credit in the bank at the minute, Vitor, with the fans, 6 wins in a row, etc. So he's got all the aces at the minute when it comes to telling Jeff what he wants, and it seems as though he's playing all the aces to Jeff straight away.
There is a few people, I don't know, I would say debating, really trying to get the point across that they're still flabbergasted that Jeff Shear's managed to dodge another bullet, Greg. But I'll come to you a bit more on Jeff Shear in a moment, because Ed Marshall has commented saying, handsome panel. So I'm going to add Rich and Dean to the maybe there, just to bring the value a bit there. Because we're not just a bunch of pretty faces on this channel. There is some sloggers like Dean and Rich who are happy to join us. Dean, I'll come to you first. Your thoughts on Matt Hobbs leaving the club in the last 24 hours, and a little bit on the potential replacement, Domenico Tetti.
I think the Hobbs situation, it does kind of, I don't know, I think it'll come out in the wash on what's really happened. I think it may be a bit more Hobbs, maybe a little bit frustrated with lack of autonomy and the move back to Mendes or wherever it said mutual consent, but it may be Hobbs was pushing for it as much as the club were. But then they're changing everything around, restructuring it. It seems like it's a clear shift back to kind of Mendes, and with Domenico Tetti, well, Tetti Domenico Tetti, however you want to do it. Him being a Vitor man means that they're kind of building this little boys club at Compton with Vitor, Cardoso, Mendes, now Domenico as well. So it kind of gives the illusion that's the way we go in. So they're purely going to look at first team, whereas Hobbs was like kind of the club as a whole as a sporting director, and Domenico's going to be a technical director. But yeah, it's going to be a fun summer, I think, is the way to probably sum it up.
That's saying, Rich, an exciting, optimistic summer, or has this story played out enough times in your eyes?
Well, at the end of the day, I suppose it's progression. Can you see it? I suppose you can. For me, Hobbs has done okay. I wouldn't say amazing, but he's done the job. Most things have looked all right. Obviously, the few little rumours that are going around today that the January signings were nothing to do with him, which is kind of funny. But yeah, we're going to just see what happens. What's the worst that can happen?
Oh, you've said it now, Rich. Well done.
No, it's one of them. We've been on the Uncle George train already. We've benefited from it. We've also been hit with some very average signings, to say the least. We've obviously, we won't name them, but there's a few. But yeah, you get the likes of, the Neves, the Jotas of the world that at the time we probably should never have been able to attract those type of people, and then we got them. So it took us to another level. So let's hope that we can do the same again, really. So push again.
Yeah, it's fingers crossed for an optimistic summer. Hopefully the Wolves hierarchy have realised that in order to be competitive in this division, you have to lay out serious money. We're not asking for sort of, Chelsea Abramovich type money. It's got to be a good sum, but it's got to be recruited wisely, and that's where your scouting network needs to come in at full force, and hopefully we can get some signings in this summer to give Vitor a really good fighting chance to start the season well, because it's been a good while since we started the season well. We always sort of have a good middle to end bit, but the season's already gone by that point, so hopefully we can kickstart next season with a good start and then really continue there, because there's still some good players left in this squad. It looks like the likes of Ait Nouri is on his way out, which is a bit of a frustrating start for Vitor this summer, but hopefully with this new sort of shift in recruitment, we can replace Ryan pretty quickly. Man City are in advanced talks for Ait Nouri. The player has apparently already given his green light to the move. We're hearing a transfer value around £35 million, which is still to be confirmed. But what sort of money do you think we'd be looking for Ait Nouri, Greg?
I'd probably go a little bit north of that, but as a fullback, I think that's probably going to be about. So I think 40, but I think that's pretty much your ceiling for fullbacks. I know we'd all want a lot more than that, but I think that's going to be reflective of the market for Ryan. I mean, if you look at it, it's only really going to be Premier League clubs that are going to be able to land in that space. Foreign clubs aren't going to be spending anywhere near that on fullbacks generally. It's saying, but he won't be going to Saudi. So yeah, I think it's going to be around that marker, and I think it's kind of an inevitability now. I think it's going to be a case of when, not if. And like you say, for us now, the reaction is going to be, how can we replace him? I actually watched the highlights of Hugo Bueno, and I know he's not at the same level. I'm not saying he's a direct like-for-like replacement, but I would like to see him get some minutes next season. I think he should be in and around the squad. I think there's definitely a player there. He's been mixing it in European football this season, which we haven't, unfortunately. So I would like to see Shedder run through, but we're going to need to get a replacement in for depth. So yeah, it's going to be one we're going to need to, and hopefully we should be, like you said, reacting to that already and starting to line up those options, because yeah, it's going to be when rather than if.
Is Hugo Bueno the man for you, Dean, in the sort of quick replacement for Ryan, or do you think we should still be in the market for a different left-sided defender?
The problem with Hugo is he struggles to stay fit for a whole season. When he's fit, his output's good, as it was over in Holland this year. But I think we do need someone that can a bit more tried and tested at this level. I'd like, whether that's an experienced head to come in and supplement it. But Hugo's output's there, but it's whether he can keep himself fit. I think even over this season, he's had a few injuries and missed a fair few games.
Yeah, he has done well for Feyenoord this season, not just in the Eredivisie, but in the European competition that they featured in. But I see you nodding your head there, Price. Is Hugo Bueno a player you'd like to see given a chance this summer, or like I mentioned to Dean, do you want to see a bit more investment in that area of the field?
I hate to go all Jeff Shea, but he's probably music to his ears. We've got someone coming back into the team, so he doesn't have to spend much to replace him technically, but I would like to see him given a chance. He's played at a good level this season. I did take a look yesterday at his stats. So he's had 30 games for Feyenoord. and they came third. He's played 9 games in the Champions League, so he's coming back to us with, top level experience in European competition. So I think the fact that Ait Nouri is on the way out will be music to his ears as well, and I think he'd come back expecting that slot to be given to him. Essentially, he'll probably think he's deserved it. I liked him when he first started coming through, when we first signed him years ago, and I took him a few youth games at the time. I saw him, and I thought he looks good. He went through a good spell of form with us, but then I think we could all probably agree it kind of tailed off a little bit, and Ait Nouri really took that position on and made it his own, which is hence why one of the best teams in the country after him. And to be fair, this summer was always going to be a competition of who wants Kerkez and who wants Ait Nouri. It looks like Liverpool's going to get one and Man City going to get the other one, and argue amongst yourselves which one's the better player. But the two of the biggest teams in the country are going to be basically deciding both of them. So, and I think probably for the same amount, I'll be looking for about 40 million for Ait Nouri. I think Kerkez is valued at the same. I guess Kerkez is a bit younger than Ait Nouri, so he's got that on his side. But we all can see what Ait Nouri brought to the team in terms of his attacking output. I think, did he finish like joint top assist maker for us this season with Bellegarde? Bellegarde, as he got in there as top assist maker. But Ait Nouri is, his attacking output is brilliant. He's probably not on the pitch for his defending, but then arguably Bueno's kind of like that as well, I would say. Bueno's also quite good going forward. So I think he ultimately is the guy to take over. I'm not advocating going out and spending all of this newfound money we may or may not have on a left wing back when we've got Bueno there. We've got some coverage there. I'm not saying we should see this very often, but I know Totti could probably play there, but we don't want to be seeing that to the left wing back. That could probably cause some heart attacks. But I think as far as like replacement goes, I'd be happy with Bueno coming in, Bueno.
Yeah, I'm just going to utilise Dean a bit more on the Hugo Bueno conversation before Dean dips. It'd be interesting to see whether Vitor Pereira actually takes to Hugo Bueno. That's a dynamic that we're not really considering. But what we're going to miss in Ryan Ait Nouri sort of kick-starting our attacks from deep, I think Jurgen Strand-Larsen may benefit a lot more from Hugo Bueno that he would have done with Ryan Ait Nouri. I think Hugo Bueno's crossing from deep and beating his fullback and wanting to get across in the box is going to be a lot more direct than what Ryan Ait Nouri is. So it does seem to be a good option, but Strand-Larsen should benefit a lot more with Hugo Bueno than Ait Nouri for me. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think he will. Hugo is a lot more direct. He is, but the difference with Ryan is a unicorn of a left back. Like, he pops up in the middle, he starts attacks, he goes roaming, he's so press resistant, which helps Totti's game as well. Because even if Ryan's got 2 players around him, Totti knows he can just fizz that in, and Ryan will control it and escape somehow. He won't have that with Hugo, because Hugo is more step overs, beat your man, get the crossing. He's not going to dance around players like Ryan does, but he will bring you a completely different positive skill set as well. And his delivery is one of those. Like, we signed Hugo Bueno as a number 10, and we've converted him to a left back, which is quite funny, the position his twin started as. So they're both twins and they're both now left backs. So I think Jurgen will rub his hands together, because one of Ryan's faults is how often he somehow holds the ball longer than he needs to and refuses to deliver. Hugo won't do that. He'll get the ball at his feet or whip it in. So that's a positive if Vitor wants to play that way, which he does want to play a lot more direct. We saw that. Whereas Ryan gives you a bit of a get-at-a-jail card when you're under pressure. So we'll have to change the way we play, but both players have positives to the game.
Your thoughts on the return of Hugo Bueno, Rich, and your thoughts on losing Ryan Ait Nouri this summer? Because for me, I am very, very disheartened to see Ryan Ait Nouri leave Wolves. But like I mentioned on Twitter the other day, I think he's one of the few Wolves players that should be playing some form of European football as a minimum, Ryan Ait Nouri, because he has that that high level of ability. But this has always been the situation, as is that we buy these players in at relatively low fees with the high potential, and Wolves were supposed to be the sort of the stepping stone for some of these players. But obviously, Ait Nouri's been here now, 4 or 5 years, and it is sad to see a player like that guy, because I think a lot of the fan base really appreciate him, and he's a player that gets you off your seat, isn't he?
Yeah, obviously he offers a lot going forward. Obviously has a few frailties at the back, like most fullbacks and wing backs of the day and age we're in. But his qualities, as Pricey said, he's got to move to team like City, brilliant, aren't they? So one of the best 2 teams probably in the country again, that will be next year if they bring their potential again and they upgrade. They're upgrading obviously their team constantly, which is what we do. But because we're obviously getting handpicked our best players every year, we lose 2 or 3. Normally through PSR rules and stuff to cover the books. But yeah, it is what it is. It's football. That's the way it is. We are not a top 4 team, unfortunately, but as much as we want to be. Those teams are going to pick who and what they want for the transfer fee they want, and we've just got to deal with it before they get impatient. And people like Cunha as well, obviously getting their moves. The players, they want to do it. They want to go to another level. That's fine. I'm all for people going to another level. But for Bueno to get his chance again, hopefully he solidates his position as that, the left wing back or left back position for us. Deserves a chance, and I think like you said, unfortunately, Dan, he might not suit what we want. Peter might look at him straight away and go, no, I don't want him. He might have a different attitude because he's played Champions League football. He might not want to play with us. He might now be a big fish in his mind. You just don't know, I suppose. Obviously he's away with Spain now, I see. It's just got to wait and see, I guess, see what the next month or so do with some transfers windows like moving now, and yeah, fingers crossed we can get someone in that's helps Bueno progress, but also have someone that also, just in case it doesn't work, really, I think.
Yeah, it's sort of an interesting one to see where we're going to go, because we talked about at the start of the show that Wolves' sort of recruitment strategy does seem to have changed focus in this summer ahead, but how much money they're going to want to sort of earmark for a position like a left back, left wing back is to be seen. The inevitable did happen last weekend with the departure of Matheus Cunha, as you can see on your screen there, dressed very fancifully in a snakeskin suit. What was your thoughts in the end on Matheus leaving, Greg, and his sort of his career at Wolves? Because for me, the moments of scoring, the winner at the Albion, all the wonder goals that he scored, for me has been tarnished in the way that he's crowbarred himself out of the club. But your thoughts on Matheus leaving and joining Manchester United?
Yeah, sorry, I haven't seen that picture of him in that outfit. It's kind of thrown me. For those of you who aren't on the video, he's wearing a very shiny snake skin shirt, tie, and suit. That's a real get-up, isn't it? You can just see him walking through Wolverhampton city centre wearing that. Yeah, it's like, I think you've summed it really well there, Dan. I think and Cunha the person, and unfortunately they've kind of ended up balancing each other out. So some great memories from performances, some incredible goals that only a handful of players would be able to score. But yeah, unfortunately his antics, some of his behaviours have really let himself down, and unfortunately that'll be a lot of what I'll be remembered for, unfortunately. It's a shame, really. But I think, as we said earlier, we're just going to, it's life, we'll take it, we'll move on. We've got a decent price, I wouldn't say a great price for him. And yeah, it's now going to be how we reinvest that and replace that skill set, maybe in 2 or 3 different signings.
Nobody wants to see their favourite players leave price, especially for a side like Manchester United. 123 North Street has come to say no minds off me about Matheus Cunha, who scored many, many great goals. One of the sort of narratives around Matheus Cunha for the people who were trying to defend his behaviour and the way that he dealt with the transfer departure was if it wasn't for Matheus Cunha, we wouldn't have stayed up this season. But for me, the narrative is if it wasn't for Matheus Cunha's goals, Gary O'Neill wouldn't have kept his job as long as he did.
Yeah, it's one of them, isn't it? Is clearly a great player, but he's also clearly, as he's shown, he's a loose cannon when it comes to on the mentality side, and that obviously the defenders of him are right when they say where would we be without his goals. So, I mean, what did he finish on? What was it, 15 league goals, I think, was it this season? In a team that was basically flailing about as bad as we were under O'Neill. Well, I think it took us until like the game week 11 to get our first win, and we were just letting in at least 2, sometimes 3 goals a game. You know, he's got to be looking around and thinking, I know I've got quality. I'm better than this. So I understand that he's a great player, but also I think for me, is the mentality side of him that's been borne out across social media, and from what apparently he's been like behind the scenes. That's the thing that really makes me just not care about him now. I'm not bothered that he's going. To be honest, I actually think it's quite funny that he's going to Man United of all places, because for some reason that place is still a draw for players. Same goes for Mbeumo, if the rumours are true. I just think. He says he wants to fight for titles, but he's going to an absolute car crash for the club. I just think it's funny that he's going there. I'm not particularly that bothered that he's going. I can fully appreciate that he's been a fantastic player for us, in the 2.5 years he's been for us. He wasn't fantastic at the start, and let's also remember that it took him a while to kind of bed in to the club. I appreciate he's playing under a different manager, a different system. I think he's playing basically up front, wasn't he? Only scored 2 goals, and the latter half of Lopetegui, and it was actually O'Neill who brought him on a little bit, funny enough, and I think Cunha's actually said that O'Neill's kind of really helped him along a little bit, and Vitor again has helped bring that on. It's clear that he wants to do more with his career. That's fine. Like I say, I think we could have got more money for him, but then again, that's back to Cunha again. His mentality of all the shenanigans that he did in January to make sure that his exit route was cleared, and he was cleared to go come this summer. So ultimately, I think, I can appreciate the good moments that he's done for the team, the great goals he scored. And Dan, you love to bring up like the Albion goal, and that fantastic. That's if you want to put yourself in Wolves' good books, that's the gold-plated way to do it. I just think it's just a bit of a letdown, a bit of a shame how it's all ended, really, because we should really be celebrating this player and saying, okay, like we are with Ait Nouri, being a bit disheartened, but go on, you're going to go on to bigger and better things. But I don't really feel that's the case. This is just me speaking and not for anyone else. I just don't think that's the case with Cunha at the minute. I don't think he's going on to a better place at the moment, and I'm just not that particularly bothered, really. I think he's kind of affected my thinking and feelings of him with all his antics of the last 6 months, which I just think it's a shame. Great player, poor attitude.
Yeah, his ability is unquestionable. I had a bit of a grumble / debate within our WhatsApp group, didn't I, Dean, last night in regards to Cunha's handling of the January transfer window, the comparisons to how Conor Cody was treated by the Wolves media team. Conor Cody, Ruben Neves, Raul Jimenez, Michel Matinho, the official Wolves Twitter admin posted really wholesome and respectful posts when those players departed. When Matheus Cunha was announced as leaving on the weekend, it was the most basic of posts, wasn't it? And just run through sort of how he handled himself in that January period. For the people who say we should have got more money for him, just remind them how he held the club to ransom in January.
Well, they did. Is it Forest, was it? Where he walked like the whole game. He didn't look arsed. And then you look at the way he kind of laps up the Villa game and then the signature on the pitch and all this stuff. But even when he's left, like the statement the club put out, there was no direct quote from anyone within the club. Like you look at the names you just mentioned, it was a direct quote from Hobbs or Jeff or whoever was sporting director at the time or the manager. Whereas when Cunha went, there was nothing from no one. It was like very similar to the one that's been released for Hobbs, actually. There's no real context to it, no narrative, just literally just good luck for the future. Like, crack on, see you later. We're done and dusted with you now.
Let me just jump in there for a quick second, Dean, because you mentioned it sort of the Wolves haven't really given any wholesome notification of him leaving. Thanks for your services, all the goals, yada, yada, yada. You follow way more Wolves accounts than what I do online. I've not seen many like Wolves players go out the way to like wish him good luck in his move.
No, mate. And he hasn't. He did that one at the end of the season, didn't he? That post where he put like a little like kind of caption on there, but he hasn't done like a montage for leaving or stuff like that you tend to come to expect from players. So, but even little things like you think back to that Bournemouth FA Cup game when he was moaning and he scored that banger from 30 yards and he didn't celebrate and no one really rushed to him to celebrate. So that kind of gives you a bit of an inkling into what may or may not have been going on in the background. So it's just, I think as Price said, and as you said, he's engineered his way to get what he wanted, whether that's him himself, whether that's the people around him, but he's got previous for the stuff on the socials. He did it at Atleti. He was arguing with fans online. He's then argued with us. And now he's gone into what is the biggest toxic environment in world football, which is Man United and their online fan base. So I'll give it until the end of the first pre-season game before him and Goldbridge are going back and forth. He needs to really get his head down and focus, let his football do the talking, because ability-wise, he can help turn that very rotten ship around. But if he's going to come with the same attitude he had with us the last 6 months, it's just going to end one way and it's going to be badly and his career is going to take a nosedive.
Yeah, definitely. Let's just go through Cunha's, what we class maybe his last Wolves post. He has shared another post today, which is basically Man United's latest post about him scoring 15 non-penalty goals this season. But on his Instagram, he posted, "Wolves, what can I say to you? What an incredible season. We didn't get to where you deserve to be, but we did everything we could to make you proud. I love these guys." And then it just goes straight to me. Individually, it was the best season of my life. All of this was only possible because of all the dedication and love I have for this club. I became the Brazilian with the most goals in a Premier League season, along with Roberto Firmino and Gabriel Martinelli. I made mistakes and got things right, but always because I love this club so much. All I ever wanted to do was the impossible for Wolves. Another one is over. Thank you for all the affection. Looks good, looks fine, musical emoji. The thing that really grated me about that post, on top of his ego massaging, all I ever wanted was to do the impossible for Wolves. That line just really grated me. He had the opportunity to exceed what many players in the past have struggled to do, but didn't even carry us to an FA Cup semi-final. Let's go back to his first season. Didn't really pull up any trees. We took a big chance on him for £45 million when Atletico Madrid wanted him out the door quickly. No other high-level clubs were sort of in for him at the time. I think Leeds was supposedly linked to him at the time, but obviously chose Wolves in the end. But to say what did he...
two lines on the team and then a paragraph and a bit on me, essentially, isn't it? That's what it is. It's like I'll get a little quick team thing out the way first, and then I'll say about how good I've done on something about being on the par with Martinelli and Firmino. Was it goal scored or something? Big fucking whoop. So what? You know, that means nothing to us. We're not going to go, oh, there goes Cunha. He's now level with Firmino. So well done him. He's done brilliant, hasn't he? Let's support him on his way in his career. Sorry, mate.
Go on, Greg.
I was just going to say, I decided to, off the back of that, I decided to watch the Ruben Neves video, the goodbye video again. And you compare the two, I mean, it reminds you of what a class act Ruben Neves is, by the way, as if we would ever forget that. But you listen to he talks about the family, how the fans treated me and my family, how you look at all the wonderful players he plays with. He doesn't talk about anything around himself, and that I think just shows, the difference. And I think that is what we're seeing as a fan base, is that Wolves were a means to an end for him. That's what it was. It's exactly what we're saying here. We were that. He can say that, he can say this, and that's fine. But the reality is for me, I'm doing this for me, and that's okay. Listen, I get it. He's going to go and double his money and stuff like that. If we all got offered double the money in our day jobs, our heads would be turned. I get that as well. But he just doesn't know how to properly engage. There's energy there. There's this kind of and I think for me personally, that's where the difference is, and that's why for me, Cunha will never be at the same level and never talked in that kind of regard, because he didn't get club. The club was a means. He didn't get us as a fan base. He didn't get the club. He didn't get what it stood for, whereas other players have. And I think that is evident in the message he's put out.
What's your thoughts on Matheus Cunha, Rich? Because I would like to try and move this show on from him. We've already given him way too much time for my liking now.
To be fair, after the first year he was at Wolves, I never thought we would profit on the 45 million quid we paid for him, put it that way. He didn't really look as good as obviously he's now finished with, and we've managed to profit. But it just probably sums him up in a nutshell, right? I'll just look at the Bournemouth game. He walked for how many minutes in that Bournemouth game? Probably 110 minutes. He gets sent off, but he also scores a worldie, moans, does everything. It's his entire career at Wolves kind of summed up in one game, where you can be so good, so bad, and have such a bad attitude as well at the same time. It's so frustrating because last time I was on, I cut him a bit of slack to say, he's a maverick, and yeah, you're allowed to have that little bit of an edge, which makes him different. But I can't knock the fact that he scored 15 goals in a pretty poor team through most of the year. But it's not on him. It's not just him. We've created the goals. Yes, he's created some himself, whatever. But I think his ego's going to run out of checks when he's at United, because as Dean put up, it's a cesspit up there. Crack on, let him have him. You've paid the money for him. We'll eventually get paid fully in 3 years, whatever, for him. But I'm not sad to see him go, fed up with the negativity of, not just the Wolves fans, but you see other fans slagging him off online, saying, what a bad attitude. But for me, we'll sing their name with whoever's got their name on the back of our shirt, we'll sing their name in their ear. We'll give them grief, I'm sure, when we're there as well. But when they've gone, crack on, enjoy. But over and out for me, I'm not worried that he's gone. Hopefully bigger and better things. And I think as someone put in the chat earlier, we actually played a lot better without him most of the year when he wasn't around. So, yeah, see you later. Enjoy.
Yeah. If I could ask for one thing apart from the obvious, like Wolves winning the quadruple next season, blah, 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 it would be that Matheus Cunha doesn't make the 2026 World Cup squad. So I feel that's all he cares about, and I've seen that the way that he's reacted when he's missed out on other World Cup, just Brazil international squads, that he breaks his heart. So I hope the forwards of Brazil, Yuri Alberto's come out of nowhere. I hope Gabriel Jesus comes into a bit of form next season just to keep Matheus Cunha out. But we do have a massive clamour within the comment section, Dean, of players that we want to see replace Matheus Cunha. So just ring off some names for me, Dean, before you leave the show tonight. Richard Rios, Yuri Alberto. Give us some more, just so these guys can have a look at some more YouTube compilations for players that we probably haven't even been linked to on social media yet, because the Mendes machine is back in motion at Wolves.
That's probably the biggest problem for me now, is me watching South American football and us being back with Mendes is not going to be. They're not together. We're going to mainly go for more European and Iberian players, I'd say. But there's a few at the team at Vélez in Argentina. One of them's just gone to Botafogo, which is Alvaro Montoro, which we were linked with, but Botafogo beat us to that one. But the other winger, the games I've watched for them, the other winger, Maya Carrizo, he's class. He could play in the Cunha role. Then you've got Mastantuono, who's from River Plate, but he's going to Real Madrid, so he's out of that kind of price range. Young and upcomers, obviously Yuri Alberto's always linked, but he's now broke his back, so he's injured for about 12 weeks. Brino Boyden, I quite like him. He plays for Corinthians as well, left-footed centre mid. Could play a bit further forward. No, unfortunately not. And then who else we got over in South America that's coming through? Obviously, you mentioned Richard Rios, but he's more of a centre mid. If he was to come in, he'd be more of an 8 than Cunha's kind of left-sided 10. And if all else fails, just play you there, Dan. That's probably the best way for me to leave the show. Is you showed your class again the other night. So on that note, I'll see you boys next season.
Thanks for joining us, Dean. Like Rich said, it's a team game. It's 3 goal involvements in 2 games at Molyneux for myself now. But it's not about me, guys. I've got a social media team to do my plaudits. They'll be tweeting about my goals and assists over the previous Molyneux games in the coming months. So keep an eye out for that at Sherpa Van Dam. One player who is still in a bit of limbo on whether he will or will not be at Molyneux next season is the captain, Nelson Semedo. For me, I'm surprised it hasn't been announced yet. For me, Wolves should be pushing him to make a decision. If he's not going to sign a contract, we need to start putting in motion a replacement, because the right centre, the right half of our defence is probably one of the main areas where we do need to upgrade this summer. Matt Doherty was absolutely outstanding under Vita Pereira at the back end of the season, but over a 38-game season, without sort of being disparaging to Doc, if we are really going to try and push back towards those sort of Europa League places, we probably need to upgrade in that area. And with Semedo likely to leave as well, it's an area that I think we need to be pushing on. Nelson Semedo on his Instagram after the season did post, it was a season with highs and lows, tough periods and great moments as well, and that wouldn't be impossible without you guys supporting us during the year. We accomplished the main objective for this season, but we have to set our ambitions higher as a club and go fight for them, because trust me, all together we can do it. Time to rest, think and take a big decision with my family. Wolves did post a picture of I think it's actually a video montage from the last game against Brentford, with the comment, "This support," and a heart. Nelson Semedo did reply to that post saying, you will be forever in my heart." Price, do you think we've seen the last of Semedo in a Wolves shirt?
We have, basically. He doesn't say that. He doesn't do the Leavers video. He doesn't do all this stuff without him going. I think he was always set on going. As nice as that house is in Tetnall that he lives in, it ain't going to keep him here. He wants to go. He wants to go and fight for titles in his remaining. He'll be 32 September-ish time, something like that. So I think he was always in his mind to leave. I think he'll probably think I've done my bit here. I probably would have liked to have achieved more whilst I was here. I was probably promised more when he signed. But for him now, he'll be thinking, as we all probably do, that the odds on favourite move would be to go to Benfica, fight for the Portuguese title, playing some Champions League games, something that we haven't really come close to doing here. The only reason why now it's still in limbo, as you say, Dan, and it's still up in the air is because we've offered him a bloody good deal, monetary wise. I don't think he was probably expecting it, to be honest.
4-year deal at 31 years old. It's a big offer. I think he has been quoted in either like Ojogo or some form of media outlet online that he has 3/4 offers on the table, and he has to make the decision on whether he follows his head or his heart. For me, I think his head's saying stay at Wolves, but his heart's saying he wants to go back home to Benfica, or maybe it's a move to Saudi, which is going to fulfill his family generations for years to come. But for me, the fact that Wolves have allowed it to get to the 4th of June and he hasn't made a decision, I think we need to be pushing. If the terms of the contract need to be reviewed, I think we need to get moving on this, because I said before, it will be away for pre-season. Vita need to settle squad going into that first pre-season.
Yeah, and the thing is, sporting wise, he has to go to a Champions League club and play out his last few years, get the Champions League experience again. I don't think him or his agent or anyone expected us at the 11th hour to just chuck such a big offer on the table, and he's gone, didn't see that coming. And that's what's literally stopped him in his tracks to make him think, hang on, I can have 4 years on what's probably going to be a 6-figure a week salary still. I know probably it's going to be a bit less than what he's on at the minute, but I don't think by the sounds of it, not by too much. So he's thinking, do I want to roll the dice with Wolves again, and maybe in a year or two potentially still be transition phase and we're still messing about in the bottom half of the table? Or another time we could be thinking, I could have been back home in Portugal. I could be playing in the Champions League Tuesday, Wednesday nights. I could be having big games in my career. Ultimately, to cut it all down, I still think he will go. I think he'll say, I've enjoyed the high money I've been on here for the last 5 years, but now I kind of want to put some sporting achievements on my CV before I retire. It's a shame because he's a solid, dependable player. I know some people had it was probably a weekly argument at some point, wasn't it, in the early years when we were debating on whether he was a help or a hindrance. But overall, he's been a very, very solid player for us, and he will be missed. And like I say, just need to get sorted because it's not as if we're going to just chuck Pedro Lima in straight away. He's going to play 38 games at right wing back next season. At least I don't think that's the plan. It's ballsy if it is, but we're going to have to look about getting a replacement in because we're not going to ask Doc to play that role either next season. So, yeah, needs sorting.
And Pedro Lima's probably not ready for a 38-game season in that right wing back position. Is he similar to Rodrigo Gomez? I think he's probably more better off the left, Rodrigo Gomez, but that's another sort of dilemma for Vitor to have a look at in the summer. We have talked about this previously in regards to players like Nelson Semedo and Pablo Sarabia. Price talked about a 6-figure weekly wage a moment ago. If let's just estimate ballpark Nelson Semedo being on 125 grand a week for 4 years, that's £6 million over that contract term. You're not getting a right back of Nelson Semedo's caliber for £6 million in today's market, are you, Rich?
No, not even close. I think, like I said, he's dependable. He hasn't really let us down. He's had some tricky games, but who hasn't? But his quality coming from obviously Barca at the time is a big coup for us at the time, really, as well. But yeah, and he grew into the captain's role. Let's be honest. Obviously, he come to having that, a bit of a, poison chalices. The last few that have had it have moved on and been a bit awkward, but. Yeah, fair play to the bloke. He's been great for us, and he's another one that we've, as a club, again, have let through, gone through the net as such because we've not put an offer on the table till literally he's walking out the door. That's on us. Fair enough. We've made the mistake. I think somehow they've messed it up by thinking, maybe he wasn't going to stay. We'll do it to kind of make us look like we're trying when they're not really trying. Do you really want to give a 4-year deal to a 31-year-old on that kind of money with us? Not really. That's not logical. 2 years is fine. Obviously, it doesn't help him really. But for us, it's, finding, like I said, a replacement for Semedo now is going to be hard. With that kind of experience that he had football-wise and talent-wise, internationally-wise as well. Played Champions League football, played the Euros, things. He's quality. But are we as a club going to be able to attract that kind of person? Well, Uncle George is back in town, so who knows? We might be able to get a rabbit out the hat again and start bringing these, great football names back to the club again. And we can only hope they're going back to the same, way we were with, the Portuguese influx that we had a few years back, which pretty much worked in our favour most of the time. But yeah, it's just a real shame to get rid of him. It really is. He seems like a real genuine nice dude as well, which is quite nice to see that, he loves the club, he loves Wolverhampton, that's all we ask for really, is them to do that.
Definitely. Greg, Richard mentioned Nelson Semedo's leadership skills there going to be a massive blow if he does leave, but optimistic for Jamie Smith Portuguese regen this summer.
Yeah, I think this could be part of the Hobbs issue. Is the handling of this, we don't know. It could be one of the reasons why he's been given a kick in. I mean, a 4-year deal smacks of desperation, but then, like we said, what are the options out there at the moment? I think Nelson as a player is quite confident. I just wish he'd score. I mean, he gets into enough positions. He just doesn't. He just gets a nosebleed when he gets close to the goal. But I think we saw with him. I think he grew as a player. Then did that captaincy, and he kind of fitted the system well under Vitor in particular. I think it benefited him, and he also dropped in quite favourably quite a lot during the games when Doc came out. Sometimes he'd drop into that centre half position, which he did without any real issue. No, didn't make any major mistakes. For me, Rodrigo Gomez is the wild card. He could be a real option for us, right back or left back. I know that I think someone mentioned in the chat as well. I think there's also options with him, and it was certainly talked about with Ryan a lot. In terms of could he play further up the field? Someone who runs with the ball, he carries the ball, is quick. He's not going to hold the ball up, but he can certainly travel. So, yeah, it's a real man. Like Rich said, we're looking at. I think 2 years would be the sensible, but I don't think 2 years gets him to sign. I think Fenerbahce has been mentioned, others as well, and I think we've got to really overpitch now because of the situation we've got ourselves in to have any chance of closing that deal. But if I was to put a fiver on it, I think he's gone. I think it's been done too late, and not with any real consideration. And I think he'll be gone as a result, unfortunately.
Only £5, Greg. You're basically telling me that he's staying.
I don't bet that much, mate. So yeah, £5 a lot for me on one bet. So yeah, I think he's done. I think he's gone. I think the video, the removal photos. I think the reality he's gone. We've curveballed him at the last, but I think he's gone, and we've got to look at how we're going to replace him.
Yeah, I think he has massively improved since the first 2 years. The last 3 years, he's been outstanding. Sort of an elite version of Kevin Foley in the Premier League, where he's just 7.5 out of 10 every single game. And it will be a big miss if he does leave. But one player has confirmed his departure. Is one of my favourites. Never slagged him off once during his time at Wolves, especially when he bagged that winner away at Man United. Pablo Sarabia. It did get to that point again. I mentioned just with the financials for Semedo is that even though I wasn't his biggest fan, the money that we're going to need to replace that caliber of player of Pablo Sarabia price is probably what he would have wanted as a contract term to stay. Maybe he's getting to that time in his career now where he wants to be playing week in, week out, and he's maybe willing to move back to Spain or maybe take a step down to a team who's maybe slightly on the ladder lower than Wolves. I'm not saying he's going to go to the Championship or anything, but he could easily play for like a Europa Conference League on the continent if he wanted to. He is that quality of a player, isn't he? And some of the moments for Pablo Sarabia in a Wolves shirt, the goal and the assist against Tottenham under Gary O'Neill, the free kick against Man United. I think I remember his first goal away at Fulham on that Friday night was a nice moment for him. Definitely got an absolute wand of a left foot, a player that we are going to miss because he has come up with some key goals in key games, hasn't he? Southampton at home, Ipswich away this season. Another departure this season that Vitor probably would have liked to be without.
It's another big wage off the wage books. There's always that. I mean, look, he was a player that came to us with a really great pedigree, like played for some of the biggest teams. So he had a profitable spell at Sporting, didn't he? Where he got about 17 goals. I think that's when we kind of picked him up. But he's come up through Real Madrid. He's been at PSG. He's obviously a great technical player. I think the argument was always over whether he was actually suited to the Premier League and also suited to a struggling team in the Premier League. Because he's a bit like he's slim guy, he's not there for the physical elements of the game. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't hack it. There are plenty of small frame players about, but He's not necessarily quick. He doesn't have much of a trick with him, but he does have, what he does possess is technical quality. So he can normally can pick a pass, and he has quality at set pieces. It's not been there this season. I've just been looking at the stats, and granted, he only made 8 starts this season. He's only got 2 assists. I mean, even Lamina finished with more assists this season than Sarabia, which said a lot. And even Guedes has got more than him as well. But I think it's just one of them where he had to come in on a massive wage because of the position we were in at the time. I think we were dead last at the time, weren't we, under Lopetegui, and we just had to get in some quality. He's had his moments, like as you say. He's had his set piece free kicks. He's had that Tottenham game is his absolute standout. It's just that sort of impact we've got from him has just never been there often enough, and that's the reason why he's always been in and out of the team. Probably his longest run in the team was that part of the season under O'Neill, when we had literally 0 players left to play because they all got injured, and he was the only senior forward player that we had at the time. We just didn't see the quality that he has undoubtedly got often enough, and that's a bit of a shame, really. So again, he's at an age where he probably thinks, you know what, I don't want to be taking a chance now on Wolves and what they do next. I want to be going to a bit more of an established team in a European league where I know I'm more suited. And he probably is another one that wants to fight for titles, wants to go off and, probably like Semedo, wants to play Champions League or at least Europa League football again. We certainly, obviously you can tell with Semedo, we're at least trying to keep him. With Sarabia, we're not even trying to, or doesn't seem like we made much of an effort to try and keep him and give him the wage that he's on. That was never going to happen, both from him to take a wage drop from us to offer it in the first place. It's just not on the cards. So, yeah, it's a shame, really. Technically, great player. I just don't think, ultimately, after the 2.5 years, he was ever truly suited to us.
Similar to Daniel Powders for me, a player that can unlock the box in key moments where your likes of, your Bellegarde, João Gomes, Andre, as good as they are. I think those sort of players that I've just mentioned, Powders, Sarabia, they've got that sort of that invention that you need over a 38-game season to break down certain teams who've got a low block and whatnot. Just to get the people involved on YouTube, press the like button if you're glad to see Pablo Sarabia off the wage bill. Press the like button if you liked his goal away at Manchester United this season. Press the like button if you liked his goal at Tottenham at home last season. And press the like button if you are enjoying tonight's show. Rich, your thoughts on Pablo Sarabia leaving Wolves before we cut this first part of the show to an end, because we're well over an hour now, and this was supposed to be a season review show.
Well, in a nutshell, we're saving £500,000 a month by getting rid of him. So let's move on. He's produced some highlights, very few of them. Not fit for English football in my mind, personally. He's just he'd fit well in like Spain and Italy, where it's slower and it's not so physical. But I just think, he's better off to find pastures new. As obviously you're saying, we've not made a big effort to try and re-sign him, which kind of says a lot, really. But I'm, like many others in the camp, that not his biggest fan, as you can tell. I think he's massively overrated. But those little bits of quality that he shows, you realise that's why then he was at some of the biggest clubs in the world at the time, and that's what he was producing potentially for them to see that as well. But I don't think he's ever hit the heights in his career where he thought he would. I would have thought his move to Wolves was probably a shock at the time, because we obviously were struggling as well. But yeah, I'm okay with him going. But yeah, I see Dan's point as well by saying, what we would save, with him going, with the transfer fee and things, what we've got to bring in next. I think you could probably bring in the same numbers by someone in the academy right now for £5 a week, because obviously Price said his numbers are poor this year. Yes, he's scored some great goals, but pretty poor output considering what we're paying him a week. But yeah, another one. Move on. Good luck to the future for him. Thanks for your time. Simple.
Yeah, can't say much fairer than that. I'm going to put you on the spot, Greg, before I cut it short for a little ad break. Who is your top 3 out of these 3? Pablo Sarabia, Johnny Otto, Fernando Gomez in your top 3 Wolves Spanish players of all time? And let us know in the comments section while Greg's having a ponder.
Johnny's first. That's an easy one. I'd probably pick, and then I'd probably would go Sarabia second.
Yeah, I think Fernando Gomez possibly has a slightly less better goal catalogue than Pablo Sarabia, and Fernando Gomez's goal catalogue was quite impressive. So, yeah, I think I'm going to speak on behalf of Price and Rich. I think Johnny Otto is probably the number 1 Spanish player out of those 3. If there's any other Spanish players that I forgot, Jesus Vallejo, yeah, Jesus Garcia San Maximus writes, making me aware. And yeah, like I just said, I'm just going to bring in one question, one comment in the YouTube section before we go to the break. 123 North Street saying, Dan was not this long on his wedding night. I'm not married, mate, so relevant comments, but trust me, you're probably right. We'll be back in a quick second to discuss the season review for 24-25. Be back in a second.
Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
Welcome back to the Wolves Fancast for our 2024-25 season review in association with FCQuiz.app, the Sports Social Podcast Network, the Boston Coffee Company, and myself, Price, Rich, and Greg. Let's quickly start off with the image, as you can see on the screen. At the start of the 24-25 season, after Wolves had come back from what I class as a really successful tour in America with wins over, I think it was West Ham, and a really emphatic win over Red Bull Leipzig, which really set the excitement in the air for what looked like a really positive season. You can see on the screen in front of you now the squad photo that came out in around September, October, with Gary O'Neill leading the line. Obviously, new signings, Andre, Bastian Moipiu, Carlos Forbes in situ there. It was exciting summer. We dispatched West Ham. We got defeated by Crystal Palace with a rotated squad, and then an emphatic, I think it was 3-0 win over Red Bull Leipzig with goals from like Rodrigo Gomez and Pedro Lima having a big assist in that game, I believe. It just seems a lifetime ago, doesn't it, Greg, from that team photo that you can see in front of you, but really, really went horribly wrong quickly. And I mentioned earlier, I think Matheus Cunha's goals kept Gary in a job longer than he probably deserved. But what was the turning point for you? What was the game that Gary O'Neill really outstayed his welcome for you?
I think I finally snapped on the Ipswich game. I think he probably would have gone before, but I think the Ipswich defeat at home was the one that was it for me. So that was the game where I was like, this has to change now. I mean, the Brentford game was a shocker. The set pieces were league, but yeah, the Ipswich game for me was when I actually felt that was when it started to get nasty. You know how Molyneux can get, and you can feel that ground. That was the game I think where collectively we were like, okay, we're in a real mess here. This has to be changed and changed urgently. The warning signs have been there, let's be honest, since probably September time. But I think the nasty fixtures we had at the start of the season kind of stretched that out. And it'll pick up when we get to the worst teams. But the Ipswich home defeat for me was a real shocker, and that was the one I thought was the turning point.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned sort of Brentford away. I think the defeat away at Villa was the start of the big unravelling for me. We were coasting at half-time, leading 1-0, dominating possession, and then just completely imploded in the second half. Gary O'Neill will sort of have his excuses ready-made. I think losing Nelson Semedo to injury in that Villa away game, which would be a big moment for Gary O'Neill. He was sort of trying to transition us, wasn't he, into a new style of play with a back four, losing his best centre half in that team at the times. I think sort of Mosquera probably edged Totti as our best centre back at the time. They did have a good pre-season, but losing Nelson Mosquera and not bringing in another centre half in the summer was just another cog in the machine of how to cock up a season, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's just a frustrating, really, looking back on it now, obviously the last 3-4 months, it's been pretty good in a way for us, obviously. But then first few months, you think, oh, how bad really was. Looking back at it now, it was dreadful, wasn't it? Like, it's almost embarrassing how poor it was, how poorly organised. Obviously, yes, he's a part-time PE teacher and drinks a lot of tea, but tactically was poor. This is the same squad that Pereira just won 5 in a row in a Prem with. There's not many added into what he'd had, but it's just so odd. It just, obviously Greg's saying how toxic it got around the ground. It got really bad, and it's not the first time it's happened with a manager at Mullen. It won't be the last, for sure. We want things to be produced better, and we want to see quality on a pitch. We don't want to see, 3-4-0 drubbins, and we definitely don't want an easy run of fixtures and get beaten in most of them as well. But we just look so far out of depth with him as a manager, and whatever he wants to do next in his career, good luck to him. But I'm just glad he ain't with us, mate. I tell you, it's good riddance to it, to be honest. They say pre-season offered so much, and it looked like maybe we're going to be all right this year. Yeah, they didn't quite go like that, did it? Let's be honest.
Any empathy from you, Price, in regards to Gary O'Neill and the summer that he was given in regards to recruiting? Obviously, Max Kilman left, Pedro Neto left. The previous January transfer window, Wolves was in the top half, on the outskirts of sort of European places. FA Cup quarter final, wasn't able to bring in a striker in that January period. Any empathy, or did he really make it himself unlikable in the end?
Oh, he definitely made himself unlikable. But I mean, I went back earlier and looked at the January dealings, because I couldn't remember how much we paid for people like Rodrigo Gomez and Pedro Lima. We paid quite a fair chunk of money for both of them. And pre-season was Rodrigo Gomez's time to shine, wasn't it? We all thought, this is a player, whereas this is a bit of a good buy. He's turned out to be quite lively in pre-season. And I always remember playing the old Championship managers. Any player I bought, if he was electric in pre-season, you can guarantee, bet your bottom dollar, that as soon as the league started, he was shit. But with Rodrigo Gomez, he got the first game against Arsenal, and then that was it. He just something that game, O'Neill just took an instant dislike him and just never played him again. I mean, I'm assuming that O'Neill took stock in the fact that, I'm hoping he took stock in the fact that, yeah, we'll sell Kilman, but we've got Mosquera, and that's going to be our guy. Neto went, but you've got, pain to say, but you've got Guedes coming back. So, as he said that, okay, well, that's my replacement then. And like you say, he ended the previous season on a low note, given injuries, but that was out of his control. Before then, he was actually toast to the town almost. He was taking us on a cup run.
Oh, massively Price. I went on holiday to Ibiza in the April of that Gary O'Neill first season, and there's still until Gary, I was never happy sticker on a bus stop in Ibiza town. That's how much he was literally adored at that point. So obviously, he had the big win away at Albion in the cup. Obviously, beat Brighton in the next round, got to a quarter final. But literally from that sort of Fulham home game prior to Coventry, Neto pulls up an injury. Cunha was injured. I think Hwang was struggling at the time. You've got Nathan Fraser and Leon Chuame up front.
And he's since admitted, hasn't he, that we shouldn't have played Neto in that game that he did, and that's all semantics now. But that season fell apart for reasons outside of his control. But then something happened, in that pre-season, and it appears to be, as the players have alluded to, he just started overcomplicating things. The iPad was out every 10 seconds. If he wasn't drinking a cup of tea, he was looking at the iPad trying to get something across the players. I think he just kind of, when coaches go away during the summer, they'll try and teach themselves new ideas, or they'll go and take in other ideas. I think in that summer he must have just took on some new ideas that just overcomplicated things and took things away from what he was doing the previous season. And I was going back again, looking through the games, and I just couldn't believe, it took us 11 games to get our first win. But for me, the Brentford game was a big eye opener. Brentford away, 5-3. We just got completely roundly trounced in that game. That was that was a big eye opener. And then it came, obviously, then things started snowballing. And you had West Ham away with Lamina and his performance. I mean, like the after the game performance. That was when, to me, you look at it and go, this just isn't functioning. It's falling apart here. He's losing control of the whole camp, because if the club captain's doing that, there's no respect for authority. And I think that was borne out again, like I say, with Ipswich and Cunha grabbing the glasses, Dawson having to physically pick up Ait Nouri and walk him off the field. It just got plainly just ridiculous. You know, a complete fall down in order of the camp. And it's at that point, you know, we were, like I said before, we were letting 3 goals a game. And the bit that it's so bad now when you go in to see what we've done with Vitor, to that interview that he gave O'Neill, where he says he started referring to the players as them, putting distance between himself, saying, I've got them working at absolute 100% capacity, and this is all they can do, and they're still not doing what I want them to do, and I'm really struggling. Well, that was it. He says, I've never had to struggle so much with a group of players. But in his mind, he's putting it all onto the players, but in reality, it's all coming back onto him, because he's just basically saying that I'm working flat out and I can't do anything with this bunch of players. And then someone else has since come in and he's, you know, straight away wins the first 2 games with them. So it's just one of those. He was, like I say, he was toast to the town for a little bit. It was all going his way, and then just one thing was not his problem, the injuries, and then I think the second part, the longer term problem, was his doing. He's just, you know, took his ideas and took them out of his comfort zone. He's overcomplicated things, and he's lost the players in doing so.
Yeah, it seemed like, I mean, this is coming from a Samsung devout here, is that it felt like he had Android software on his iPad in the end. It just, nothing really worked for him, did it? It was like, there was so much over complication, the constant changing of formations and just styles in play of games. I was going to try and compare it the start of this season to sort of Bielsa under Leeds when they got promoted. It seemed like it was just chaotic football. He was just trying to outscore the other team, and we didn't have the defence good enough to do it. But you mentioned sort of Mario Lamina at West Ham price. On the screen right now, you'll see a montage of pictures of some of the most embarrassing moments for the 24-25 season. Top left is Mario Lamina's behaviour after that defeat away at West Ham. Jeff Shee emailing Manny saying, "Don't be sad, mate," on the back of the Wolves season ticket prices. Cunha having a public spat with Liam Keane after being accused of not clapping the away fans. Craig Dawson's 2 own goals away at Everton. The list goes on. Cunha getting sent off at Bournemouth. Wolves giving away 3 penalties at home to Bournemouth. Noni Madueke saying everything about this place is shit in regards to Wolverhampton, and then going on to score a hat-trick in a 6-2 win for Chelsea. But one of the most embarrassing things for me was Gary O'Neill admitting to drinking 20 cups of tea in a day. It's still flabbergasting for me now. I really need to drink a lot more H2O during a day, but I'd never be able to drink 24 cups of H2O a day. I think 20 cups of tea is just absolutely bonkers, and he needs sectioning for that alone. But any other sort of moments, Greg, for you that you want to bring up, or any one of those moments you want to talk about in depth there?
I think that's a great montage, mate.
Right.
What a season it's been, eh?
It's been classic. I was smiling there because I remember just talking on a previous fancast about the 20 cups and that bombshell. I think the interesting one for me is Dawson. That what an incredible fall from grace in terms of play. You know, came in, was, you know, Ballon Dawson, scored against Liverpool. You know, really became a rock in the heart of our defence, and then has just completely gone AWOL. I don't know if Father Time has caught up on the legs and whatever, but that's been a really interesting one, and then literally disappearing off the grid. So yeah, that one there was an interesting one. The other one obviously was us setting the record. What was it? Almost had 3 penalties in a game, hat trick of penalties in one game. So yeah, some really bizarre instances this year.
What about you, Rich? Any moments for you that stand out there? Look at what mentioned, like Greg mentioned in regards to Craig Dawson. It's such a sorry state of affairs that he was so influential in keeping us up under Lopetegui, him and Mario Lemina, and the way things have unravelled with Lemina and Craig Dawson. And Craig Dawson hasn't really been seen since Vitor Pereira came in. I'm not even sure whether he was registered in the squad after Vitor Pereira came in. Hasn't been seen for months in any sort of training ground picture. In the recent photo when Vitor Pereira got given the Manager of the Month award, when literally every man and his dog and Jeff Sheehan was in the picture, the likes of Craig Dawson and Sam Johnston weren't visible in the photo. It's unfortunate because I really like Craig Dawson, but some of the things that you hear about his behaviour around the training ground, obviously he'll feel hard done by that he wasn't given a chance, but sort of the injuries on the back end of the season previous to this one really caught up to him. He never really managed to get back into the team, and yeah, I think it was literally his last game for Wolves, the 2 own goals.
Yeah. The rumour was that he wanted to be captain because he went to Semedo. He had issy fit, didn't he? And that was the reason why he kind of lost the plot in the changing rooms, and Peter was having none of it. He wanted discipline and he wanted someone a little different, and that was the rumour that come out, bless him. But he did well in the first few seasons for us, and obviously then it really capitulated massively to the point where he's not even training with the kids now, is he? He's not doing anything. So pretty sad state of affairs for a professional footballer to get in that state, really. But yeah, loads of the season. God, I think your highlights have banged the nail on the head on all of them, to be honest. There's some absolutely stinking ones in there. Attitudes of the captain, obviously in the top left, giving 3 pens away in a game is absolutely scandalous. But
I haven't even put Mario Lemina crying after the one game in here. I mean, there's other moments, guys. Scramble your mind for other moments. Let us know in the comments section if I've missed anything there. Obviously, the way Jeff Shee's handled the Wolves women's situation is another one, but the whole season ticket increase of the pricing and Jeff's barrel full of email replies to fans was embarrassing from a person of his position within the club. More embarrassing than the season ticket pricing increase itself. But any other memories that you can put forward?
Someone in the comment section did put something funny about the debate sponsorship. Obviously, how much of a farce and a joke that actually is, because it doesn't even exist as a business. So, yeah, good on them for putting that in. That's quite funny. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a bit of a joke to have that on a shirt when it doesn't really exist. But
I mean, the running theme through all of this is that it's bad attitude, isn't it? Go through most of them, even got from Jeff down. He's bad attitude. Lemina's bad attitude. Cunha's bad attitude. Seemingly Dawson's bad attitude, and Gary O'Neill's bad attitude to 20 cups of tea a day, and hopefully he doesn't have 3 sugars in there, otherwise it must be absolutely hyper.
I've done a great job of imposing a cup of tea on that picture of Gary O'Neill on the left. That is AI, gents. He didn't have an actual cup of tea on his press conference.
And on the Danny's point there, the Bollards did get a repaint. However, this is the longest paint job in the world in trying to repaint from 1 year. They somehow made it like a 2-year job of just getting these bloody stanchions repainted. Can't believe they must be using like one-armed painters and decorators or something.
We need Manda's paint to kickstart us again, I think. But yeah, that montage that I put up, that wasn't even like over like a 5 or 10 year period. It was over literally 1 season. I'm sure there's other Premier League clubs that have had embarrassing seasons like that. I know Harchester United is probably one of them from a TV drama point of view. But yeah, it was an embarrassing season, which for me had me really, really concerned. After that Ipswich home defeat, I was backing us for back-to-back relegation at the time, if you remember, because we are that sort of club when things go really bad. It is a quick downfall, but thankfully Vitor came in December and really turned the ship around. And towards the back end of the season, we did manage to have our best winning sequence, I think, since like 1980 or something. It was 6 wins in a row with a goal difference of +9, better than the likes of Barcelona, Liverpool, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich at the time. Teamwork makes the dream work is the slogan with that picture there. I mentioned a moment ago, I didn't know that Craig Dawson and Sam Johnston weren't weren't in that photo. We can see the amount of staff at Compton, and hopefully Vitor's really building a close-knit family bond there, like Nuno had a few years ago, and we can really kick on this summer. But I'm going to ask you this, Greg: was those 6 wins in the back end of the season, were they really good wins, or did fortune hand us a favour?
I think a bit of both, and I think, but what I would say is that you could see we had a plan. There was a method, there was an approach, and I think that kind of, the harder you work, the luckier you get, and I think that phrase kind of went through. And let's be honest, we know football is a confidence game, and if you're winning matches and you're seeing your way through, then that's what went to City away, and we were unlucky there. They were, although they had a lot of possession, we at the post, at the post a couple of times, and we played really well, and you could just see confidence is such a big thing, and this was something that wasn't in the team, potentially because of the attitudes of some of the players that were there and what we saw with the chaos. So, yes, there were some that we did all right, but others were convincing wins as well. Leicester at home being an easy example. So, we'd earned the right, and we deserve that, and that was reflective of, like you say, the team work that you could see with it.
Yeah. Rich, just run me off some of your sort of favourite games, victories, moments under Vitor since he came in December.
My favourite, I think, is the 4-1 away win out of Fulham, because we were going absolutely mettling that away, and that night it was amazing.
The Gary O'Neill moment, Rich.
Oh yeah, but that's kind of where I was right now. That was my favourite part of the year. It was so good.
Get Gary back.
It was so good. But then you tick around and go into, obviously, the 5 wins we had. We didn't have Cunha in the team, obviously, at the time as well. But Ipswich away. Obviously, we're looking at, we probably either needed to beat them away to then maybe get out of the relegation zone or drag us back in, and then winning there. And that was a nice drive home in the end, rather than an embarrassing drive home. But yeah, I think you can say the back end of the season, obviously, with Vitor, I'd say probably the Ipswich one for me. It sticks on mind.
Yeah, it wasn't important win at the time. I think we all had that sort of squeaky bum time, didn't we? We beat West Ham. Ipswich managed to get an unfathomable win away at Bournemouth on the midweek, and you think, bloody hell, we can't get beat on Saturday. And then Liam Delap put them 1-0 up on the Saturday, and thankfully we came back. It was a huge moment, which pretty much near enough solidified the safety, didn't it? That win on away at Portman Road on that day. Some moments for you, Price, since Vitor Pereira came in?
First one, got to be beating Villa. Beating Villa, always nice, isn't it? I think we got an early goal, didn't we? Then I think we had a bit of pressure, and then until Cunha, who, again, probably walked his way through most of the game, just went 97th minute, made it about himself. Of course, he did right at the end because he got the goal. But this is so Wolves. In the season where we spent most of it being, certainly the first half of it being just absolute shit, unworthy. Only thankful that there's 3 worse teams than us in the league, and even then trying to challenge them for being shittest team of the year award. Even in this season with such dysfunction, as we saw on that montage and everything, we still make it a history-making, record-breaking season with 6 wins in a row. You cannot get any more Wolves than that, to be so horrendously shit, to then go and somehow pull 6 wins in a row out of the bag. No one would have ever considered that. But what was sweet about it, though, was that we did it without Cunha. That's the sweetest thing. That's when Larsson really stepped up. I think he scored in probably 5 of those 6 games, I think. And he showed his real worth in that time as well, when we were without Cunha. That was just, and in that time as well, let's not forget, in that period, that's when everyone went on Vitor pub watch. Everyone decided they wanted to go out almost every night of the week, taking any random pub they could. Everyone would hang around in Wetherspoons after town because they wanted to see Vitor would walk in. Think back, that was like that the mood around the fans, the city at that time even though we were still, let's face it, in like 15th, 14th, whatever. Just because we were like winning every week, literally every week for those 6 games, I've never known the mood so high for such a while, because everyone's just loving the fact that we've got a Victorian man of the people. He'll go out to the Swan pub every other night, play some darts, drink some beers. He'll go out, he'll win at the weekend. He'll give us a nice catchphrase: first the points, then the pints, and he will back that up by literally going to the pub straight after. Those few weeks, it was just, I think it's fantastic. We just thought this guy could potentially be better than Nuno the way he's going, and I think it's great. It's not a moment of the season because it was elongated over a few weeks, but I think that just really had that connection between manager and fans, really, that I hope does roll into next season, and hopefully it continues. But it doesn't come along often. This connection. We certainly never had it with the likes of Large, Lopetegui, O'Neill. We've never had that connection. But Vitor's coming straight away, made that connection with the fans. So hopefully this is an interesting summer ahead. He does get what he wants. He makes the right decisions, and we can keep that good feeling wagon keep on rolling.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned the Villa game. That was my favourite. I think the whole evening was made for a big Wolves win under the lights. 5:30 kickoff, plenty of drinking time to be had. Early goal from Jean-Ric Bellegarde. Obviously, Cunha manages to steal the limelight with a late winner after doing absolutely fuck all for the majority of the game. Coming in first game in charge away to Leicester City, I think they were something like 4 points or maybe 5 points ahead of us at the time. It was another huge game. Ran out 3-0 winners on the day. Should have won by more. Was another great away day that was had. Obviously, the 2 wins. Sorry, the double over Manchester United. That win over Christmas. 2-0 at home to Man United. The 2-2 away at Tottenham. Some really special moments, and Vita, as you can see in that picture there, like sort of guiding the players to salute the fans after, I think it's the Southampton away win. Things are really building. He's got the sort of a foolproof blueprint on how you get the fans on side, you get your wins, you get your points, you go out for points. Like you said, you have a fancy slogan, you have a nice little flag in the South Bank applauding all your efforts and whatnot, and hopefully this summer is given a transfer budget to really build a squad with the player profiles that he wants. But some of your standout moments, Greg, since Vitor came in?
Yeah, I think we've done a good job covering a lot of them. I do, there was some big games, some big wins. You've called them out. I think it's just funny because I'm just sitting here thinking about it now, thinking I think Vitor needed to give Matheus Cunha some PR lessons because he's done everything he should do to get fans on side, whereas he was doing the exact opposite. So, and I think that's key. I mean, one of my favourites was him cheerleading the fan. That was a great moment, giving them the G up and watching them react. I think that was brilliant. But I think for me the Villa game, we've talked about them all. Villa game, the big games away. Starting to pick up points away, and really just a big momentum change and belief ultimately.
Definitely, you see, you can see the sort of screen on there. I've put X's through the players who have already left and likely to leave this summer. One of the odd ones that's come out this week is apparently that Yerson Mosquera might be allowed to go out on loan this summer, having been injured for the majority of the season. Might be just sort of just to rebuild his fitness, get some more game time. Maybe Victor hasn't seen enough of him to want to trust, throwing him straight back into the team on the back of a pre-season. I've questioned mark players like Hwang Hee-chan. I think Neil Lewis or someone may have been in the comment section earlier asking, do you think Hwang could leave this summer? What's your opinion on Hwang leaving this summer, Rich?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable, isn't it, really? Another one to struggle with fitness over his career with us, unfortunately. Whether Jeff's going to want him to go, because obviously the influx of internationals that we have flying here every week is a different matter, but we won't go into that right now. It's political. But, it's a shame if he does. I think, he's not a bad... He seems like he's a good bloke and decent footballer, but, he's on the long list of those question marks on that squad list there that who's going to go. The change around and the turnaround in the squad this summer could be absolutely massive. You could have 11 or 12 people going this year. You know, that's hard to deal with and cope with coming into next year, having to not just lose those individuals and the talent that they potentially have, but bringing in and introducing new people, you know, their ideas, whatever, and what Pereira wants them to do. You know, it's going to be tricky. Obviously, he's got pre-season. Hopefully, he can get at least 3 or 4 in before, you know, he starts doing pre-season, rather than the last week, and then we rush him into the squad, you know, day one. But yeah, there's a few more surprises on there, maybe, obviously, because you've got like Sasha, that's obviously been MIA since his knee injury again, and Traore, obviously, with his knee injury, is he going to go on loan? There's so many. Even Doyle, you know, I don't dislike Doyle. I think Doyle's got a lot of quality, but whether it's going to be with us is a different matter. It's maybe a shame, but it's just a worry whether we can get the players that we want into the positions, and the fact that we're going to lose. We don't want to go into the season with a bare bones squad and pick up injuries and then kind of have what O'Neill did, obviously, the year before, when we're bringing kids in that just aren't quite up to the speed of the Premier League or FA Cup games.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a massive turnover this summer. Obviously, you can look at that picture there. Sorry if you're listening via the audio platforms, but I've got it down to around 13/14 players that I'm pretty confident will still be here in the summer. I'll just give you a quick rundown of them: Rodrigo Gomez, João Gomez, Matt Doherty. I've got the 3 goalkeepers: Dan Bentley, Jose Sarr, and Tom King are still being likely to be here in the summer. I think Sam Johnson will leave. I think he'll want to be playing regular football, whereas I think Dan Bentley and Tom King will be relatively happy to continue with Wolves on the wages that they are, and Wolves will want them around for the homegrown quota. I've got Santi Brenner still being one of the main players to be here in the summer. Toti Gomez, Andre, Jurgen Strand-Larsen, and Jean-Rick Bellegarde, along with the January editions, Emmanuel Agbadou and Marshall Manetzi. I've got players like Guedes, Boubacar Traore, Tommy Doyle, Pedro Lima, question mark. He might be a player that needs to go out on loan. Be interested to see if Wolves can get some money for Keanu Hover this summer. I'm not sure what the situation is going to be with him, whether he'll be the one that comes back as a backup and Pedro Lima goes out on loan. Neil Lewis, you're absolutely bonkers for your £5 donation. I think that's the first ever donation we've ever had. I'm probably going to add that to our Good Shepherd Fund. So thanks for that. Thanks for everyone who's tuning in. But yeah, thanks Neil for the donation there. Price, just go forth and applaud at how well Emmanuel Agbadou's been since he came at Wolves.
Yeah, I mean, as far as January signings go, he's got to be up there as one of the best ones we've had for helping change the team around. I mean, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how well Vitor would have done if he wasn't brought in, to be honest. And just think we could have had Kevin Danso instead, you know, and who knows how that would have turned out. He was the one that obviously we had our eyes for, really flittering our eyelids towards Danso, and then he's basically ditched us at the last second, and we've gone, okay, well, we'll go and get Agbadou, and he's turned out to be an absolute superstar. I love him. He's got everything you want for a defender as General Agbadou. He's got the power, he's got the pace. Obviously, I remember being at Bristol City, his first game, and I thought, his passing his work, but that's come. That's not really an issue. He's just got everything you want. And we're led to believe he pocketed Mbappe once, so you know I'm so glad we bought him in. He's money well spent. As far as the squad go, Dan, I like you. I made notes earlier, and including loan players, I've got up to 19 players that could leave. Now, but I will caveat that and say just because a player wants to leave doesn't necessarily mean that they'll get to leave. Because it will be absolutely mental if we let 19 players go this summer, but there will be loads that go.
Let me put you on the spot with one for a quick moment. 3 players: keep, loan, and sell. Hwang, Guedes, Sasha.
Guedes, Sasha, and who do you say?
Hwang.
Hwang.
Take him around the back of Compton.
Yeah, load up the dual barrel. Guedes will will be sold, surely to God. I mean, the guy has never wanted to be here since he signed the contract. To be honest, it's clear that he's not wanted to be here. He lasted 6 months, been out on loan twice. He's come back. He's still never looked the same. I know some people they latch on to when he has like one half decent game where he's probably got an assist or he's run about a bit and say, look, there's a player in there. That old cliche, there's a player in there. He just doesn't want to be here. It's going to be the same as Fabio Silva. He just this guy just does not want to be here. He wants to be somewhere else. So let's just cut him free and let him go on and do his own thing. I think Sasa will be loaned out because he's too similar to Strand Larsen, or just similar profile anyway to Strand Larsen. And if Strand Larsen's not working and we need to change the game, you wouldn't really sub him off to put exactly the same type of player on, would you? So that I don't see. I think it's probably the natural thing to do, isn't it, from our point of view, is after he's been out of action for so long, we'd probably give him a pre-season, but then I would imagine he'll go somewhere where he's likely to start every week to build his minutes up, so he'll be loaned out. So I guess that means, based on your question, I'm keeping Hwang. And he didn't have the best of seasons this year. His best position is centre forward, where we currently have Larsen, and Larsen's there to stay based upon his excellent first season. Hwang's impact is kind of diluted when he's pushed out wide. If you remember, his most profitable period for us was when I think he had Cunha on the left and Neto on the right, and Hwang was up front, wasn't he? That's when he went through quite the purple patch. So, but yeah, as Neil says, really just basically sell all three, or take him around the back of Compton, and you know what to do next.
I mean, I might we need a new merchandise merchandise range come the summer. I might have to create the take him around the back of Compton t-shirt. Where do you stand on that? Keep, sell, loan, Greg, Sasha, Hwang, and Guedes.
Yeah, I mean, I know you've got to pick one each, but I'd keep Sasha, and I know what you've just. I know. I know what you did in terms of similar profile, but I do think if you've got two of them in the last 10 minutes, you can go a bit chaos. It's not exactly. You can cause. Listen, we scored with our last goal of the season was a perfect Route 1 goal. So, and if we've got someone who can whip crosses in, then it could be entertaining. I also don't think he had a bad goal record, really, considering the amount of time he played. It was actually on the pitch. I don't think we can sell him because I think we would just lose so much money on him now off the back of the injuries. He wouldn't be worth it. I'd out the loan rather than sell. I'd loan Hwang out. I think he needs to run a games. He's a confidence player. It worries me that Guedes got in ahead of him towards the end of the season. And he didn't really feature at all. And then, as has been quite rightly said, Guedes for me has to go. He does not want to be here. He's finishing. I mean, I've got a season ticket in the South Bank. I watch his shooting drills, and for a striker, he is woeful. He's like one of them. You press too long on FIFA, so everything's max power, kind of toe button, and it's going. You don't mind if it's your centre half or your reserve goalie. But for a striker, he's finishing is woeful, and we've seen plenty of examples of that. And he doesn't want to be here. He's probably on a fair wedge as well, so he would be my person to sell for sure.
What about you, Rich? And then I'll add Fabio Silva into that range of players. Could Vitor build a Portuguese bond with the prince of the under-21 side, or is it literally the summer where we need him gone off the books and finally sort of, rid the curse of not only Fabio on Wolves, but Wolves on Fabio?
Well, realistically, what you're going to get between 10 and 15 million quid for him if we're lucky. He looks like he's been doing obviously a good job where he's been. But, yeah, is it the final answer, and just say, yeah, that maybe solves a problem potentially. You might create one, obviously, again, if you do keep him. But my head says, yeah, you just get rid of him because he's had enough chances. But I just got to remember how hard it was for him to come into that team after that Raul injury and be the number 9 for us at the time, where we didn't have any choices. And him settling into English football at 18 in a Prem is it was too big a task for him. And I think obviously confidence then just disappeared, and it's just been a downward spiral. And if that injury for Raul didn't happen, he might have had a completely different career. But that sliding doors moment where it has happened, and we are what we are at the moment. But I would say one last chance, because at 15 million quid you're going to get back off him. It's probably worth the gamble, really. He could produce a couple of goals through the season to help us again. But as for the loans and stuff, I would sell Guedes purely to get him off the wage, to be honest, because he's probably on 80 plus grand a week. Doesn't really produce, even though I said Greg was saying earlier that he's actually got quite good assist-wise numbers this year. Has not been too bad. I would probably then...
I think we need to be a bit more positive towards Gonzalo Guedes, because Neil's saying we should keep him. It's a no-brainer.
Appreciate the fiver, but no. No chance. This is the wage structure. We need to be careful what we've been doing. We've been paying over the odds to keep these kind of players. And like I said, he didn't want to be here. He's never wanted to be here, and we've loaned him out, and he's still come back. And to be fair, this year he did look better. Yeah, he's had, like I said, good games, bad games, but it's still ultimately get him off the wage bill, let him go home, be happy. We don't need anyone that looks like he doesn't want to be here. We want players who want to play for this club and this badge. So, sell him. Hwang, keep Hwang, because he's still, keep him fit. He could get back to them goal scoring positions last year, potentially, year before even. And then obviously, with Sasha loan him out, get some fitness and see if we can get some price for him next year.
Yeah, it's an interesting summer. A huge turnover. Neil White's commented, I would keep Agbadou, Strand Larson, Andre and João Gomez, sell the rest. What a recruitment summer that would be on the back of that decision making.
Actually, this is a bit of a punt. It may or may not happen, but something I'm willing to pull out there. I think that both Sam Johnson and Sarr will go this summer. I think that comes up from Rich. I think they'll both go, because Johnson's just miserable as sin. Every time that I see him when they're sitting the players' area by me, the family enclosure, he's miserable as sin. And so I wanted to go anyway last summer. So I think he's probably had his fill and wants to move. So I wouldn't. It's an outside chance, but I wouldn't discount it that we could actually see both of them go.
Well,
yeah,
Sarr's move failed literally the last minute of deadline day, didn't it? So the only reason he didn't go, and that would have kept obviously Johnson happy and Sarr happy, but in the end they both weren't happy.
Yeah, the only reason we signed Johnson anyway, if we're led to believe it's true, that we signed him because Sarr was going to go. Otherwise, if Sarr hadn't expressed an opinion to go, then we wouldn't have had to have signed Johnson. That fell down, and then we've both got 2 number 1 keepers, and that's what kicked all the bad feeling off. So I think they could both go.
I think relatively we've got a strong spine now at Wolves, which I think with a good recruitment this summer, we're in a half decent position. I think Jose Sarr's gone up in level since Vitor's come in. I think your defensive line, whether it's Agbadou, Totti, Agbadou and an additional one, I think that's a strong centre back partnership. Obviously, João Gomez and Andre is probably one of the best midfield partnerships in the league. And Strand Larson, 14 league goals last season. If he can continue that sort of level of output, there's no reason why we can't push for top half this season. But it's yet again, it's all down to the hands of Fosun this summer and how much they really want to back Vitor Pereira. Obviously, with the recruitment strategy now looking like it's shifting focus, I don't think them letting Matt Hobbs go by mutual consent if they're not looking to do some sort of business this summer. There's going to be a lot of players leaving, and hopefully with the income of those sales, we should be able to bring in some very good squad depth, as well as some hopefully key additions to the starting lineup, because obviously losing the likes of Ryan Ait Nouri and Matheus Cunha, that's over sort of 20-25 goal involvements between the two there. So it's going to be an exciting summer, hopefully. And some of the rumours that you're hearing about Vitor Pereira wanting profile of players who are really good with in one-on-one duels and pacey. I think that's what we've always sort of liked, isn't it? As Wolves fans, sort of players who want to beat players. We were treated heavily with Ruben Neves and João Moutinho with the technical side, dominating possession in certain periods under Nuno and Lopetegui, but you want a player that gets you off your seat by beating a player with pace and getting a ball in the box, don't you? Instead of, death by 100 passes, because it's not really the Wolves' way as such, is it? But who for you, Greg, this season has been your most improved player for Wolves? Because the man on the screen for me, Jean-Rick Bellegarde, is my standout choice for our most improved player this year. But who's your choice?
That's a good call. He was one of a couple. It's been interesting because I'd say you do it over the course of the season. Andre really suffered under O'Neill, or maybe the first game, but then has come alive under Vitor. Absolutely been a standout player. And for me, probably was second to Gomez for player of the season. But Gomez has been consistent throughout the season. I think that's a good shout in terms of improvement. I think I'm going to argue with that one, mate. I think that's a fair cop. I think it's a fair shout. I think he's really come to the fore. And whereas before he was playing on the kind of the left wing under O'Neill and was lost, he's really started to build under Vitor. So yeah, I'll agree with that, mate. I'm going to disappoint you and I'll keep you on it.
Obviously there is players like Toti Gomez has vastly improved in recent years this season, especially under Vitor Pereira. You mentioned Andre. Obviously, I think he started a bit iffy. Gary O'Neill obviously wasn't keen with him. He got player of the month and then was dropped. What's your opinion, Price, on the most improved player for the 2024-25 season? I'm always talking about next season on the image there.
I would like him to win the next season one, because that means he's improved properly next season. Bellegarde,
7 assists, more assists than Cunha this season. Jean-Rick Bellegarde.
Yeah, I mean, he had that purple patch, didn't he, when he turned up? But then I think as the season went on, he did revert to type a little bit. For me, it's Andre, considering, like I say, how misused he was when. Well, misused. He wasn't trusted, was he, that much when O'Neill had him, and some games this season it's looked like there's two of him on the pitch because it's just everywhere. And it's just crazy, isn't it, to think we've got like two Brazilian nationals who are patrolling our central midfield. It's signs, but there's not so much to add for me really. Just Andre for me. I think he's been absolutely fantastic, absolute dog of war, workhorse. In the middle of the pitch, he probably doesn't have the same dynamism of João Gomez, because João Gomez sometimes gets the ball and really drives us forward with the ball. Andre's just there just to stop attacks, blunt dead, pass the ball off. He does it so well. He's so energetic. So yeah, for me, it's Andre.
Maximus Wright's come up with a nice little opinion piece for a left field shape. Matt Doherty, Richard's most improved player. It is fine margins, isn't it, in football? Gary O'Neill persisted with Nelson Semedo as the right centre half. Vitor came in and put Doherty right centre half, and Doherty's been really quite assured with Agbadou and Totti since Vitor Pereira came in.
Yeah, I'm with him, to be fair, with Doc Doc's obviously produced for years with us anyway, but Doc's been great in the position we've actually managed to show him into to actually get him a game, if anything. And he looked great, looked very comfortable. He had a couple of blips, but mostly brilliant. Surprisingly, mine's Totti. I've not been a massive fan of his, but
no, you've been quite clear with Totti in the wall for a long while, haven't you? And you to come out and give it Totti is quite humble of yourself, Rich, to give him that award.
Oh, mate, when I'm wrong, I think Kid's been great in games where his pace gets him at a lot of the things. He does make mistakes, his Cruyff turns and some of his reckless passing and things, but I think he's improved vastly to be a centre half in a Premier League, looked very comfortable. And 4 years ago, he was a rugby player, or 5 years ago, whatever it was. And I think that's pretty outstanding, to be honest with you. And I will probably get some shit off my relatives for saying that because they're not fans either. But yeah, fair play to the kid. I think he's really produced this year in long spells, and obviously gets better by look at it. And hopefully with Agbadou and whoever the third centre half may be, if it's not going to be Doc next year, we can obviously Mascara is going to come back in. Those three as fingers crossed.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be sort of disparaging to sort of like George Elokobe, but I think there is resemblances on the way they play football, but it's more of a mentality. Like that I like about Totti is that I think he's one of the first names on the team sheet for me because he's that sort of player that I think will run through walls for Vitor. His athleticism will get him out of situations when it comes a bit sticky, but I still think there's quite a lot of potential for Totti still to come. And with Agbadou at the back, I've mentioned our spine a few moments ago. I think we have got the building of a good spine. Hopefully, with a few more additions next to him, I think we can do really well next season. There isn't really a lot of standout options for the next award, but I think Rodrigo Gomez really took this award by a landslide, didn't he? Young player of the season for 25-26 in the image there. Any other sort of mentions for you, Price, in regards to young players of the season?
You never see him not smiling, do you? Rodrigo Gomez, and we all know why. No, he's another one. I talked about energy with Andre. He's another one. He's just got boundless energy. You know that the goal scored. Was it Leicester when he just ran almost the entire length of the pitch? Just if we can get a position nailed down for him and help improve on his quality, it'll be a great signing. And that's what I said earlier. I was surprised at what the actual amount that we spent on him was, but it'll be worth it if we work on him and we improve him. It'll be a fantastic player for us next season.
Yeah, I think his versatility is going to be a key thing for Vitor Pereira. We've talked about him being on the right side, on the left side. He can play wing back. I think he can be utilised in a more, a wing position if we are going to go a bit more direct. It'd be interesting to see if you had him and Hugo Bueno as the wing backs next season. I think they're both players who are willing to put a ball in the box from deep. Both have got pace enough to be a fullback, so it is an option. Obviously, both still relatively young, but the ceiling for potential regarding Rodrigo Gomez is really high, and I think Matt Hobbs will probably point to him being another one of his better recruitments in recent years. But any other names to mention? Greg, obviously Fabio Silva's had a good season for Las Palmas, being the young striker that he is. Bit unfortunate that Nathan Fraser's had a bit of a torrid time away on his loans, but it's Rodrigo Gomez, ain't it?
Yeah, it's not even close. It's probably the easiest one we'll have award decision. Yeah,
I'm surprised Pedro Lima hasn't been given more minutes after the appearance that he did make at home to Nottingham Forest. I know we did lose the game 3-0, but he didn't really do anything wrong, did he?
Yeah, and that's been the way he's been heavily involved. He's heavily involved with the team in the warm-up and training. So when they're doing the set-piece routines, he's very often the one alongside Rodrigo that are doing the crossing in and stuff. And he's been around the squad. So particularly towards the end of the season where we managed to find time to give Tom King some minutes, which is fine. You would have thought we could have found a bit of space to give him time, but it felt like we were trying to do Santi Bueno a favour and bringing him in, and then the players were shifting out to cover for that. So I would have liked to have seen him. He was obviously very highly rated. Was it Chelsea that I think were?
Yeah, for Pedro Lima, yeah.
Yeah, so I think he needs the time. He needed the minutes, and it's a bit of a shame he didn't get it. So we'll see. But yeah, this one was home and hosed. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, let's quickly move on from this one because it was pretty much a landslide victory for Rodrigo Gomez. Hopefully the missus gives him a nice cuddle from us this evening on the back of his award. I'm sure he'll be pleased with winning our Fancast Player of the Season, Young Player of the Season for 24-25. It's a bit of a spoiler, the next one, because obviously I'm really anti Matheus Cunha at the moment, but my goal of the season for 24-25 was Marshall Manetzi's absolute rocket at home to Brentford. Matheus Cunha didn't even reach my top 5 for goals of the season this year. I think his goal away at Bournemouth was an absolute fluke, which goes in Rose head 9 times out of 10. Fulham was all about João Gomez's assist to him with the nice pass. All he had to do was find the target, really. Southampton was another hit and hope. The list goes on for Matheus Cunha's flukes this season. Pablo Sarabia's free kick away to Manchester United was up there. I did like João Gomez's goal at home to Crystal Palace. I think the build-up play for that one was a really good goal with Gonzalo Guedes cutting it back and João Gomez finding the bottom corner. But what was your goal of the season, Rich?
I'm going to go laughably with you. The kid's got hustle and effort. You can't deny it. He's got that in absolutely, tons of it. And yeah, you could see how much he absolutely loved it. And fair play to me, he didn't half hit it. You've got to give him a due for it. But yeah, also, I'll give a nod to Sarabia's free kick. Downside is it is going in against a keeper as average as he is. But Minetti for me, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and yet again on the screen, he's got the goal of the season for 25-26 as well for his goal against Brentford. So I look forward to seeing that. Hopefully at the G-Tech next season with another rocket. Obviously, Mark Flecken had to leave the Premier League on the back of that goal because it absolutely flew past him. Greg, your goal of the season?
I'm going Sarabia. I get the shout for Minetti, but for me, Sarabia. It was a really quality finish. And I know the goalkeeper's cack, but I think a decent keeper would have struggled. A good keeper would have struggled to save it. So I'm going to Sarabia.
Yeah, great moment in that away end at Man United. Obviously, allowing us to do the double over Manchester United, and really, really exceptional free kick by a player, as we mentioned earlier, has got a wonder of a left foot. But being on the wage that he is, I expect that sort of goal from a player like him. Whereas Marshall Minetti, who's come from France and absolutely rocketed one in the South Bank net on the back of flack from a percentage of Wolves fans since his arrival, I feel was a nice way to shut up the haters, and hopefully he can continue to do more of that next season. Adam, your goal of the season?
Yeah, I think it's got to be an absolute worldly free kick to win a goal of the season. It was good, but for the reasons you've just said, Marshall Minetti, that was the last thing I expected Marshall Minetti to do or be capable of. After he shot in early on in the game that scuffed its way out for pretty much a throw-in, the very last thing I expected him to do was rifle one in from about 20 yards. But it was past Flecken before he'd even had a chance to think about it. I actually jumped off my seat laughing when that flew in because I could not actually believe it, and neither could potentially vast majority percentage of other people that were in the stadium that day. Amazing goal. And like I say, he gets it just because I didn't think he was capable.
I just love the fact that we was playing Brentford on a Sunday. Our goalkeeper isn't able to take goal kicks. Agbadu absolutely just rifles one up the pitch. Our centre forward gets the knock on, and Marshall Minetti volleys it away. It was a proper Sunday league goal by a superb Sunday playing Premier League footballer in Marshall Minetti. And
should have watched something done earlier. Take goal kicks from there. Gave him more minutes.
That's it. And hopefully Minetti can be a part of this team next season, whether it's a starting position every week, we'll come to see in the next few months. But I think it was good to end that way. It was unfortunate that we couldn't get the win at home to Brentford, but it did end the losing streak that we was on, and hopefully we can kickstart from pre-season and really make a go of it next season under Vitor Pereira. I did mention that Matheus Cunha does win 0 awards in our Wolves Fancast end of season awards. I think we've all sort of alluded to the fact that our Brazilian king, João Gomez, is our player of the season for 24-25. But any other shouts, Rich?
Andre or Strand Larsen, maybe Strand Larsen for 14 Prem goals is pretty outstanding for you, especially leading line for the last, month or so on your own without, Cunha with it. But Andre, how good he's been for the majority of the year, settling well in the UK, obviously, I suppose you can't really argue with Gomez. Gomez has been outstanding for most of this year, but it's it's nice to have a choice of a couple of players, even though how bad a season we've still had. There'll still be some shining lights that, it's in this squad that's still produced throughout the year. So, yeah, Gomez is a great shout. But for me, I'd probably go Larson, to be honest.
Yeah, I think 14 league goals in his debut season is not to be turned up, not to turn up your nose at. We did have Peter Vellen from our associate FC Quiz.app, who's one of the main Norwegian football correspondents, who predicted Strand Larsen to hit 15 league goals this season. So he's just come up a little bit short, but it's a nice tally to start on, and hopefully he can double that next season, or just finish a few more. Hopefully he'll double it, and we'll be ecstatic with that. Price, any other shouts for you?
No, I mean, definitely honourable mention there to Strand Larsen. I think I've said on the podcast before, in the early days at the start of the season, I was a bit unsure about his overall quality. I'm happy to admit that. I didn't think he was mobile enough. I just wasn't sure that, I know he did struggle with injury for a bit, and he did the old roll with the cast on the arm for a bit. That probably helped him actually a little bit, but to get 14, and you have to stress non-penalty goals in your first season is amazing. And I think, don't forget again, a lot of that was down to when Cunha was at the team and he was a guy for getting the goals. He's actually got really good. He doesn't get that many shots in the game, but the ones he does have, he makes them count. I'm sure there's a stat where he scores a high percentage of his shots on goal. And some ones, that ill-fated Brentford away game, the one he scored in that, how he got his outside of his boot to flick it in for a goal. Great finish. So yeah, he does get an honourable mention, but João Gomez is just lovable. Isn't he? Just lovable player. It seems like a nice guy, absolute warrior on the pitch. It seems like he'll die for the team. Hopefully he doesn't get sold this summer.
That's the concern, isn't it, with João Gomez and Andre, is that the ceiling of potential that they've got and the form that they're both in. I think if João Gomez was able to sort of add more goals to his repertoire, I think he would have been a certainty to leave this summer, because I think him and Andre could walk into a lot of teams in Europe. The partnership they're building, but individually they're both exceptional in the roles that they do. But I think if João Gomez started adding goals to his game, I think he's sort of 60, 70, 80 million pound player. If he starts adding goals, never mind if he starts adding Ruben Neves type wonder goals to his repertoire. But future captain maybe. Who would be your captain choice for next season, Price, if Semedo is the one to leave?
That's a good question, that is. Depending on who goes, and if Vitor keeps him in the same position, Doc wouldn't be a bad shout as captain, just because he knows the club inside and out. If the likes of Semedo, all the other previous ones are going to go, so all the candidates, like the Cunhas are gone, Semedo's gone, Dawson's gone, etc. I think you probably need an experienced head to guide some younger players. I think João Gomez could potentially be that role holder. But I think for me, experience head wise, I wouldn't mind giving it to Doc.
It's a strong shout. I think in the first one to suggest it, Price. It may have happened on other channels. I think Doherty's the first time I've heard it. I think I'm not against it, to be honest. I think he's obviously a consummate professional. I think he's relatively well liked throughout the dressing room. He's always seemed to get on with the UK based players, and obviously the continental players that we've brought in recent years. If he's a regular in the starting lineup, it's not a bad shout. I think the main runners seem to be like sort of Agbadu or João Gomez, but where would your choice be, Greg?
I think for me, if we're to progress, I don't think Doc's a regular starter, and that's not to be anything against what he's done this season. He's done an incredible job and fitted into a new role and done really well. But if you were looking at the team now and you'd go, right, if all the players are fit, I don't think he starts based on what, you know what I mean? So I I think Magbadu and Totti start before Doc. So I know there used to be like a club captain role. Maybe that'd be more. I go Agbadu. He's got the experience. I think he was captain at Rem. If my memory serves me correct, he was captain there. He's the right age as well, because I think he'll be 28, 29 going through the next season. So he's got the right. He's in the position as well as the sweeping. So I'm thinking Kieskiera here. He's in the position as the sweeping defender that he'll see the pitch in front of him. So he's going to be in quite a good position, and I think he'll command the respect of the team. So I'd go with Agbadu. I can see why Doc was called. I don't think I can see the merit behind that, but I'd go with Agbadu for that reason.
Yeah, I think his presence alone, isn't it, with Agbadu? His physique, his manner, the way that he carries himself, he seems to be quite well liked around the dressing room. I'm not sure whether he's what sort of vibe he brings around the dressing room, whether it's just a lot of positivity or there is a serious, let's be professional vibe about him. Also, I'm not in the changing room, but from the bits that you're seeing of him, obviously with him being captain at Rems before he joined us, I don't really see a more standout candidate than Agbadu. Obviously, you mentioned his role within the team, his position from a visual sense, and I just think the comments that you hear about when he first came towards in his first couple of training sessions, he was like booting players up in the air and stuff. I think that's the sort of vibe I want from a captain. Is people take the captain serious when he's talking, and I feel like that's the vibe that Agbadu is bringing. Any candidates for you, Rich, other than Agbadu?
I'd say I question mark maybe Gomez. Gomez is just the quality. Obviously, it's going to depend on whether his confidence in his speech is coming on to where he's progressing personally on his level, whether he feels the confidence to do that, because he's obviously good enough to be a captain. So that's a personal note for him, obviously for what we saw in that documentary in the season. And we haven't handed out the veto. Might bring his own captain in. He might bring another player in that's going to be who he wants in to be the mould that he wants, or he's had previously maybe somewhere that he trusts. I don't know, obviously, what he's going to picking a new captain is tricky. It seems to be a poison chalice in the last few years. Anyone that's been captain at the club seems to disappear the year after, so it's not really ideal. Yeah, Agbadu would be a good shout. Quality's there. He's obviously, he seems a lot younger than he is because he's come out of obviously French league. You just not really heard much about him before we've really kind of bought him. For me personally, yeah, we can go with Agbadu for sure, I think.
Yeah, we'll see. Obviously, down to Vitor to make that decision, but I think Agbadu would be a good choice. But I did also say I think Mario Lamine would be a good choice when he was captain at the start of the last season. So let's just see how that goes. Guys, what do you make to the leaked pictures of our possible new kit for next season? As you can see on screen there, black collar, black sort of sleeve trim on the side, still sponsored by Debet, which I believe is our last season with Debet before a new sponsor comes in. You can sort of see on the screens between me and Rich now, there does seem to be still a bit of a colour discrepancy for my preferred Wolves theme. I know it's sort of old gold, but I do prefer more of an orange scheme than this sort of light, dark. It's like more of a yellow, really, isn't it? I did hear a scandalous rumour. Price may know more about this. I know there's rumours that go flying about. There was a rumour that Jeff Shee wanted to get rid of Hi-Ho Silver Lining and have Coldplay Yellow as our come-out music. Your thoughts on the kit, Price, after your laughter resides?
I have not heard that rumour. That's the first I've heard that. But the kit, I like it. It's simple, isn't it? It's just plain and simple. Nice little collar on there. I know some people have different views on collars. Some like them, some don't. But I think it's if they have moved the Wolves badge back to the left, then it makes it all look a bit better. I mean, I still find it a bit.
This frustrates the hell out of me that they didn't put Sudu centre line there. I don't know.
That's. I don't know how that got signed off, but we are where we are. If it goes back to what it is like that everything all and set nicely, my OCD can settle down from this year's kit, and yeah, I wouldn't mind that. I'll be happy with that. It's fine. Nothing too offensive about it.
I was going to say kit nonce, but I'll say kit collector rich.
I was going to say, that seems a bit harsh.
Your thoughts on
your
your thoughts on the leaked shirt you can see on screen there?
Yeah, I just looking at the collar. It looks very like the Doritos 2003 like V-neck. It's good. I love a collar on a shirt. Like it's obviously was saying, it's quite plain. Bit different to this, really, with obviously the embossed, obviously the wolf's head through it all in that one. But yeah, if that's the pick, I mean that's going to be the shirt. Apart from the color, which we obviously seems to have been adapted to a light gold rather than, well, like you said, yellow rather than the almost orange that this was previously. But I'm okay with it. Obviously, it depends if we're going to have what the away one's going to be. The rumor is obviously all black for the other away, and what the third is going to be. Is it going to be a very garish color? Who knows?
Who knows? Greg, your thoughts on the Fancast shirt you're wearing and the shirt on screen?
The Fancast shirt is amazing. Obviously, that's why I'm wearing it again now. So that's. I just thought I'd give a big shout out there for it. It's part of the video today. I'm comfortable with that. I'm a bit of a throwback, so I do like a collar on a shirt. I think it looks smarter, which is all right if you're in the pubs and that. So yeah, there's nothing there that's particularly garish or offensive. It's pretty standard. I think the colour trend is going to stay for Fosen. I think that's something they've settled on, if I'm honest. That's one I have to accept. For those of you that, like you say, prefer more of an orange colour, I think this will be the pattern now for Fosen going forward. I don't see that deviating. I would have no issues buying that. I would have no issues wearing that. Yeah, more than reasonable. I do. Obviously, the D-bet thing is quite entertaining, hilarious. That we've got a sponsor, non-sponsor. But hey, they've paid the money. If we've got the money in the bank account, then so be it, and we'll roll with it for next season. I think that next season is the last season, isn't it? And then they can't be made. I think they can be like a shirt sleeve sponsor, but they can't be a main sponsor. So yeah, we'll just roll with it. But yeah, I wouldn't have no problems with that if that was the shirt that we were going with.
I relatively like the shirt. I'm still not really a fan on the colour scheme, but I am a fan of a collar, and I think the shirt that you can see on there from the 95-96 season is still my favourite Wolves shirt. Nice collar. I like the WWFC within the collar. I did really like the imprinted sort of WWFC underneath, like the sort of the nutmeg and the Wolverhampton emblem. Obviously, the Goodyear sponsor's always iconic, isn't it? But one last question. What's your favourite Wolves shirt of all time, Rich? You're the collector here.
90s scoreline, mate. It's just another level for me. Just when I obviously loving football the most as a kid. Got some bangers of the shirts over the years. Obviously, split my camera's not the other way, but there's a few on me covers. But yeah, I'll go the 90s scoreline, mate. It's just great.
Yeah. We've had some cracking kits over the seasons, and I just wanted to get the colour scheme right. I think, some of our best years was more of an orange base scheme than someone just said it's not old gold, it's new yellow. And that just for me is just not a scheme that I want to be associating Wolves with. But thanks for joining myself, Price, Rich and Greg on tonight's season review show, which we're now approaching 2 hours 20, which I'm going to have to split into 2 audio episodes now. But yeah, like I said, thanks for joining us across the season on our social media channels, again for supporting us in our charity match on Friday, which you can still support the fundraiser for the Good Shepherd, which I'll post the link in the bio. Have a good summer. Be sure to follow at Wolves Fancast across all the socials for all the latest transfer news and whatnot. And Rich has got his fingers up, which I'm assuming he's going to remind me how good my penalty was on Friday.
That too. I was actually going to give a shout out to you for the work you've done to the year for us, not just for the Fancast football, but yeah, the work you put in behind the scenes for us. So I appreciate your time, mate. I really do.
No, I do it for the club.
No, I know, but we appreciate what you do. So
we don't make anywhere near enough money for me to be giving up my job anytime soon. So I appreciate everyone who comes on the Wolves Fancast, gives up the spare time, especially on nights and evenings after defeats like the one to Ipswich and other episodes that we've done over the years after getting beat by West Brom at home and all these horrific moments where it would be easy to just say, take me around the back of Compton and end this. But yeah, thanks for everyone who's supporting us, continues to be a part of the show, has been a part of the show. Everyone who comments, your Neil Wright, your Maximus Wright, your 123 North Street, Danny Pelletti, literally everyone. I'm sorry if I've missed your name. Everyone who's been on the show, from Miguel Pereira this season, who came on to do our insight into Vita Pereira, your Dave Edwards, your Johnny Phillips, who have been on the show in the past, all the ex-players. Thank you. Enjoy your summer. Follow our Wolves Fancast. And as always, up the Wolves.
Thank you.